Call this meeting to order. This is the regular May meeting of the Montana Board of Public Education. Today is May 15th, 2025. We are meeting at the Montana School for the Deaf and Blind in Great Falls. And we are going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance, and we are going to be led by some MSDB students in that.
Go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So members of the board, I just want to quickly introduce you to the folks that got to lead you today. So we have three of our amazing teachers here at MSDB. We have Miss Melissa Miller, we have Mr. Shay Jarvie, and Miss Jamie Jones. One of our pairs, Kaylin Forward, and then we have our students, Addie, Kaylin, and Mr. Wyatt.
Please call the roll.
Chair Tharp.
Here.
Vice Chair Slinger.
Here.
Here. Julia Maxwell.
Here.
Madeline Quinlan.
Here.
Hannah Neeskens.
Here.
Renee Rasmussen.
Present.
Gavin Mao.
Here.
Superintendent Headland.
Here.
Commissioner Christian's office.
She, Dr. McLean wrote me, she has a 8:30 meeting and she will be jumping on after that.
Governor Jean Forte's office.
Excuse me. Thank you. Board of Public Education encourages the public to participate in board discussions. Persons who wish to participate should sign the public comment sign-in sheet and identify themselves to the board chair or executive director prior to the board's consideration of the matter in which the persons are concerned. Anyone wishing to participate in board discussions will be recognized by the chair in keeping with normal board parliamentary procedure. We discourage public comment on personnel matters and ask that you discuss these issues in private with the board chair. Montana Board of Public Education is a professional development unit provider. Attending a Board of Public Education meeting may qualify you to receive professional development units. Please complete the paperwork at the sign-in sheet if you are applying for professional development units. At this time, we'd like to welcome any visitors joining us in the room or online. Anyone here want to introduce themselves? Remain anonymous.
Senior Rose, Executive Director, Office of Public Instruction. Julie Marble, Chief Program Officer, Montana Office of Public Instruction. Trustee Moss, Associate Chief Program Officer. Tyler Capiz, Deputy Chief of Staff at the Office of Public Instruction. Katie Blanket, Legislative Director at the Office of Public Instruction.
Christy Steinberg, Director of Accreditation, the University of Montana.
Christian Mitchell, hi folks, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consultant. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Ashley McGrath, Government Relations Center Balance. Kim Popham, Director of Public Policy and Research, MFPE.
This is South. I am the school liaison for Malmstrom Air Force Base.
Thank you.
And. Okay, is there any, at this time, is there any public comment? Is there anything not on the agenda? Anything online? We will proceed on to the consent agenda. Which you have in your packet starting on page 8, your consent agenda. Again, any items in there may be pulled for further discussion if you request. If we get a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'd make a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
The motion, is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. And we have before us, board members, our agenda. Get a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
There a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? Public comment? All in favor of adopting the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, the next item is basics of ASL. And we have some people from MSDB to give us some instructions.
Thanks, Dr. Stark. I'm gonna introduce our two ASL mentors, and one thing we've thought about when we have groups on our campus is most people don't know how to interact with a deaf, hard of hearing person or a blind, low vision person. So today you'll meet with our ASL mentors and learn some basic science skills as you see staff and students, and then tomorrow you'll have our orientation mobility person come in and talk to you about what do you do when you run into a blind, low vision person. So this is Jennifer St. Pierre and Diane Moak, so I'll let them take it over.
Hello, I am Jennifer. I work as the ASL mentor here. I'm going to teach you a few basic signs, but I would like to introduce myself. I grew up here. I graduated from this school. I have two kids myself, have a daughter who's hard of hearing and a son who is hearing. Diane Moog is my mentor for 2 years. And she's helping me on how to do my job and everything, and we're having fun, and I'll be ready to just let her go. To teach you some very basic signs. Okay, good morning. Okay, so good morning. Use your dominant hand. That's going to be the one that is by your mouth to go down onto your palm. And then morning, morning. Good morning. Another is nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. Okay, so how would you say hello? What do you think would be a way to say hello? Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Well, that comes in. Welcome. Good afternoon. Good, like we did for morning. Good morning. It's like the sun's coming up, and then afternoon, the sun's slightly down. Afternoon. Have good day. Just like the one finger coming down to do day. How are you? I'm good, I'm fine. Fine. Fine's a good one. Fine. Have good day. To all of you. Thank you.
Thank you both for that. Appreciate it.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.
Move on to our reports. Item number one, my report here. It's our last meeting in March. Participating in the accreditation engagement review with Cognium for Clark County School District, which is Las Vegas, Nevada, the 5th largest school district in the country. was very, very interesting seeing things at that large level. I was just talking earlier with Hannah about the difference between our size of schools compared to the rest of the country, and it's very, very different governance structure in Nevada. It's fascinating to see each individual building principal there basically has the autonomy and even more autonomy than some of our superintendents in Montana do. So it's just very, really interesting seeing a district of that size, and then also working closely with Cognitive for an entire week. Participated in our weekly legislative and executive committee meetings, sat in on assessment committee, charter school committee, and accreditation committee meetings. As well as the MSDB bi-monthly meetings, attended NEMAS meetings in Sydney and Glasgow. Spent more time than I would have liked to, but it was always interesting monitoring the legislature. It's like, had to find a new thing to do every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon after they went sign and die, but then participating in MTSBA think tank and SAM legislative network meetings and getting all the different perspectives from all our different education partners in that. Participated in a NASB information exchange as well as my role on the NASB Financial and Audit Committee. And as I always report to you, my various mental health support activities during this last couple of months, helped coordinate and facilitate a week-long CIT training in Eastern Montana. That is critical or crisis intervention team training primarily for law enforcement. They encounter somebody in the field with a mental health crisis. Participated in Hope Squad meetings. We have Hope Squad in 4 of our schools in Eastern Montana, and they have been running really well. Taught some QPR and assisted in a couple of critical incident stress debriefings out there, and then on schedule to be a proud member of the MCC staff next month, as I'll be presenting youth mental health first aid at Miles Community College at the end of June. Career aspirations have all been met. Also, I would like to give as much time as necessary to Madeline Quinlan to share some information about Dr. Wood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
First of all, I'm glad to be able to join you by Zoom. I had shoulder surgery earlier this week, so I'm recovering from that and I'm all slung up. So I just wanted to take a minute to recognize Claudette Morton and her passing. She was a longtime public advocate for public education in Montana. And among other things, she did serve as the executive director of the Board of Public Education for 4 years. She's a product of Montana schools, graduated from Billings High School in 1958. She earned her bachelor's, master's, and doctorate, all from the University of Montana. She started her career in Helena in a leadership role at the Office of Public Instruction. She served as the English Language Arts specialist there. Early on in that position there, she worked to strengthen the school and college collaboration and aligning the state curriculum standards between K-12 and the educator preparation programs. In 1986, she became the executive secretary of the Board of Public Education. She served in that position for 4 years, and she was actually in a leadership position there at the time that the last accreditation standards had a major overhaul. That was Project Excellence, designing education for the next century, back in the late 1980s. So that was the major precursor to the overhaul that our board did back in 2023. Claudette, following her time at the Board of Public Ed, she went to Western Montana College, where she was an associate professor of education. And she was director of the Montana Rural Education Center and spent a lot of time and effort trying to strengthen rural education in Montana and recognize the unique qualities of rural education. I think most of us probably know Claudette in her role, which she began in 1996 as the executive director of the Small Schools Alliance. She spent 14 years in that position. She was a very strong advocate for rural education and especially for the independent elementary schools districts that are, of which we have many in our state. So after her time at Small Schools Alliance, she went on in retirement to write a book on the basic system of free quality education in Montana and published that. And I know that book has been used by various legislative and public committees as we've looked at revising and revisiting our school funding formula in our education programs in Montana. So I just wanted to take a moment to recognize Claudette and her long time serving public education in Montana. She died in Helena on the 6th of May, and she was 85 years old. So just appreciate being able to take a few minutes to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. Yes, I was just, we have a couple other folks in the room here. Young Miss Maxwell is way up in the corner over there, and I was talking with her beforehand about the importance of history. She shared that was her favorite subject, and I think it's vital for those of us in public education today to recognize people who shaped where we are right now in Montana education, and Claudette Morton was one of those key figures. So thank you for sharing that information, Madeline. Also at the table, I also want to introduce Lydia, and she will learn more about her just in a few moments. No, we got state superintendent report. When Gavin gets around to his item number 5, he will share more about her, but the new face at the table is our new student rep, and so we will get to meet her a little more in depth in about an hour and a half or so. So thank you and welcome. Did anybody have any questions for me on my chair's report?
How many hours are in your day?
Well, the good Lord only gives me 24 and I fill them. So we move on now to our executive director's report.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Before I get started, I do want to thank Superintendent Fruchmeyer and everyone here at MSDB. It's not lost on us how much work it takes to have us here and just extra people in the building and, you know, the awareness of having folks here and time and energy. So just really want to thank them for the hosting us and bringing in folks to really educate us on what they do here at MSDB. I'm really looking forward to their presentations later this morning and learning a little bit more about the foundation. I think that will be great. I don't know how he's going to top goal ball, but I think, you know, bowling will be fun. We'll see how that goes. As you know, the legislative session has ended. There are many bills still either in enrolling or waiting for the governor's signature. So it's still a lot to be done. It's far from over. There were 1,759 bills introduced and 884 of those passed the legislative process. We tracked 101 of those. That was really a mixture of bills that we either took a position on or ones that we thought had an impact on the work that we do at this board or really education in general. And we monitored because of the importance of the positive or negative impact that maybe they had. I just passed out to you a legislative wrap-up document that highlights the status of each of the bills that our office tracked. The first 4.5 pages are bills that we provided testimony on. And you'll see House bills first and then Senate bills. And then the remainder of the document are those that we monitored, again, House bills and then Senate bills. The red signifies bills that the governor has either vetoed or bills that died in the process. And the yellow signifies bills that have been signed. Unfortunately, not all of these bills have some kind of color associated with them because we're still waiting for about 20 of them, I'd say, to have action taken on them. In fact, actually today is day 10 for a number of them. And so I'll have more information on those probably today. I'll update this as soon as it's final, send you a final document, but I thought it was important for you to have at least in your hand today. I know a lot of people are getting questions about like, where did we end up? What are we looking at? You know, what bills did you track? What did you take positions on? And so I wanted you to have something. I'll continue to update this. I'll continue to update the Excel document and send that to you as well. I just want to give a little overview of sort of how I think things have gone. I'm really proud of the work I think that the board did this session. I think that we worked really closely with the governor's office. We worked really closely with the Office of Public Instruction, the legislature. We did a really good job, I think, demonstrating the important work of our board. I think that we did a really good job telling our story of all of the things that we've done over the last few years. Not just the sort of status quo, but fulfilling the obligations and the new things that they have given to us. I think that's been really important. Part of our work is responding to requests and questions and providing information to legislators day in and day out about our work. And I'm really proud that we were able to do that in a timely manner. We also worked really closely with the budget committee. That seems to be a very fast-paced process at the beginning of the session, where they have lots of questions and sort of like an additional process. And I'm just really happy that we were able to do all of that in I think a really positive way, where the legislature really respected the work of this board and MSDB and honored all of our requests. Well, frankly, the board didn't have any requests, but they also didn't take money from us, so I think that's a good thing. But they did honor all of the requests of MSDB, and I think that that is saying something in a positive way for us. So I really want to thank the board's legislative committee. It's a lot of work to be on the legislative committee. You meet weekly. You're expected to be up to date on all of the bills that we're tracking. You have to know at least a little bit about what we're looking at. It's an incredibly responsive and present committee. And so I just really want to thank you for the work that you did and the ability to, you know, pivot when needed as well and come together. This session was one where there was a lot of bills dropped at the last minute, when hearings also happened at the last minute. And so I just want to thank you guys for being responsive. You did a lot of work this session, so thank you. And I also want to say thank you for being good thought partners in the process. We pride ourselves on not taking positions on a lot of bills amongst, you know, maybe the dismay of a lot of legislators, but I think we want to make sure that our positions are meaningful and are ones of constitutional authority or importance. And so I just want to thank you for that. And so I want to share a little bit, I want to highlight a few of the bills that are in this packet and ones that I think that we're going to be focusing a little bit on as we start to implement some of the pieces of legislation. House Bill 28 was our agency bill. This hopefully will provide some flexibility to our board when we're meeting timeline requirements and sets clear funding and communication requirements, not only for us, but also for schools who are thinking about applying. I think that's really important. The changes also should hopefully limit the number of special meetings we have to meet the timeline requirements. So that will be great. House Bill 252 is one that we did not take a position on, although this bill was incredibly important, I think, to public education in general. It's in the monitored list. It's the Students and Teacher Advancement for Results and Success, or STARS Act. You've heard this called STARS a lot. It includes your qualified staff, which are your clerks, your class 7 teachers, your emergency authorizations. Those all now get a quality educator payment. It also increases your quality educator payment for districts that meet a minimum amount. It expands your advanced opportunity to allocate enough funding for all districts to participate, which I think is going to be great. And then it creates a school funding data dashboard and a future ready payment to fund the funding formula. This is $100 million investment into public ed. And I think that's really important as we think about going into the decennial study and positioning ourselves in a position to be in a better place before going in and potentially asking for more money. So I think this is a really big deal. Speaking of the decennial study, House Bill 153 is the decennial study bill. It gives the Board of Public Education a seat at the table. We had not had one in the past. We may have had a seat if it was appointed by the governor or someone else. If this bill explicitly says the Board of Public Ed or their designee. And so I think that is a testament to the work of this board and all of the things that we've done with the constitutional players. And so I think that's a big deal. And we're really fortunate that Dr. Tharp, among all of his other things, has agreed to fill this position. I think it's going to be really great to have him do that on behalf of the board. And then House Bill 338 and 628, I'm gonna actually loop these ones together a little bit because they do have some coordination language. But both of these bills require that the Board of Public Education work to include early numeracy along with early literacy and those early literacy targeted interventions. You remember after the 2023 session, we did a lot of work with our Early Literacy Advisory Council to create rules around evaluation methodologies, jumpstart programs specific to early literacy. This now will require us to add early numeracy. I've already reached out to the Early Literacy Advisory Council. And actually, we've already heard back from most of them and they're all thrilled to continue this work. So I think that was really positive and we're excited about that. We've also reached out to Representative Romano and Representative Nicola Kakos, who sponsored these bills, and they too want to participate. So I think that is going to be really great. We're really hoping to get working on that as soon as possible and turn these recommendations around as fast as we can. And then finally, Senate Bill 181. This is one that kind of builds off of a bill from last session that also kind of ties to the yellow kidney settlement. If you remember House Bill 338 from last session, we talked about it a lot. This is Senate Bill 181 was from Representative Winnie Boy. It requires the educational agencies conduct consultation with tribes. It requires that that there are members of Indian tribes in negotiated rulemaking. It clarifies reduction of funds for school districts who don't spend their funds on Indian Ed for All in appropriate ways. It requires some additional reporting when we review accreditation of schools. So some of this was outlined in our settlement agreement as well. So I don't anticipate any problems implementing any of this, but I did want to bring it up because it does require some additional things from us as board members to sort of keep on our radar. So that's all I have from like the legislative front, but before I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair, I just want to acknowledge a couple things either in the agenda or in your packets before I turn it back to you. But the update under the superintendent's report, I just want to make sure you know that you're going to receive information today on information that pertains to an action item tomorrow. This was timely, so we wanted to make sure that you have the information today. We took action tomorrow. But make sure that you do, if you have questions, that we get those answered because you will be asked to take action on that tomorrow under the assessment committee item. And then there's also a document in your packet pertaining to the closed session later today for item 11. And then before I turn it over to you, Mr. Chair, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Great Falls Public Schools. We're going to do a couple tours later today and an activity. I'm really excited and thankful that we'll be able to tour our last final charter school, number 17. It feels crazy that we did 17 in 1 year, but I'm just really excited to see their charter school. And I have really high expectations for them actually, because I feel like we've been hearing a lot about them. So I'm really excited to see it. And then also participate in an Indian Ed for All activity. I'm really excited to do that with Jordan and her students. So just really want to say thank you to them and the great partnership that we have, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So Mr. Chair, back to you. Thank you.
And in all fairness to the core charter school, it may be our last formal one, but remember, I was there on July 1st, 2024, when the first technical day that they opened.
Yeah.
They witnessed the mess that they had, as every school has, July 1st. As the trend. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to being there. All right, also let the minutes reflect that Dr. Angela McLean has joined us, representing the Commissioner's Office. So welcome, Dr. McLean, and look forward to your report here in a while. Moving on down to item number 3, State Superintendent Report. Superintendent Headley.
Thank you all so much. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, Director Flynn, thank you for the legislative update. So you covered a lot of that for me, so I appreciate that. No, perfect. I appreciated partnering with you throughout this session and getting a chance to work with your committee and your presence at the legislature on a continual, constant basis was great. So I agree. It was an incredible session for education, one of the largest investments we've seen in ages in public education. So very thankful to the governor and the legislators for the STARS Act. So I have an update on that. As of this morning, we had 366 out of 418 schools had certified in Mayfair's their participation. It is due today. So we have made contact with every school district. We do have a number of school districts that have let us know that they are not going to participate at this time. And there's different reasons for that, whether it's negotiations or whatnot that they're working through. But we are doing a ton of outreach to them. Our staff has been all hands on deck. My team in the executive office, the finance team, just the whole agency, our data and IT folks. And, you know, some of the things that happen throughout the session are interesting. You know, we have a lot of the fiscal notes to do on these bills, and sometimes the FTE we request or the implementation support that we need to put these things into action, we don't always receive. So those items were removed from the STARS Act, and it is a huge lift for our agency. We did not receive, you know, financial or FTE personnel support to implement that. So to get the developers even to put the certification into the data system, and with this timeline being so immediate, it was just a huge focus and all hands on deck. So I'm thankful for everyone's great work to get that rolling. It has been a lot to take on, and we will do our best with what we have and get it done as always. So we are just working on that. And I want to let you know, thank you for the packet you gave us. Katie Bloodgood will be talking a little bit later this morning, but she is working on a legislative implementation packet. So in the past, the OPI published a legislative document that listed bills that passed and didn't pass that impact education. We take a little bit different of a view, also looking at anything that has to do with the land board and other things that might have implications in our agency. And so we'll have a legislative implementation packet this time instead, where it incorporates kind of like next steps and how we're going to collaborate with all of you to actually put the bills that passed into action. And we're hoping that will help school leaders and others kind of get involved in the process and the next steps. So we're gonna take a little bit more time before releasing that than has been done in the past, and put more kind of next steps and action items in there, like I said. So I'm thankful to Katie Bloodgood for doing that great work. And then also a lot of times the legislative liaison or person that was helping with session has been in a temporary role and then left the office. But as you know, a lot of this work is ongoing, and there's a lot to do in collaboration with you and with the commissioner's office and many of our other partners in education. So Katie's gonna continue on getting all of us together and putting this all in place. So it's kind of a change in how this is being done at the agency, where we're bringing school finance and programs and everyone to the table to work in working groups to implement the legislation and make sure that everything gets done and that we continue to work with the legislators on the intent of the bills. And so I'm excited about that new approach that we're taking to do a good job of implementing all of the great opportunities we have from the legislation that passed.
Susie, speaking of implementing, I know, and of course, big member of all the different organizations, we've been flooded with emails in the last few weeks. A lot of questions about STARS, making sure. Is there anything for schools to confirm that when they submit it, that yes, everything they've submitted is compliant, so they will qualify? Or is there something that says, okay, we got your information, but it's not, the numbers aren't sufficient that you will not qualify for STARS funding? Is there any sort of check and balance in that to reach back out to the schools?
Yeah, so we will work through, we will work with each of the school as we move forward. The deadline for today is just that they are committed to meeting the requirements. So they just have to certify in Mayfair's today that they are committed to meeting the requirements. And thank you, Dr. Tharp, Chair Tharp, for posing the question, what if someone doesn't currently have access to Mayfair's, or there's a challenge there? We did, Katie and the team did create a PDF, so we could have someone actually fill out a document if necessary, rather than log into Mayfair's. So we did have an alternative pathway. We didn't want to have too many papers to file and deal with like we did with Title VI. So we were, not necessarily advertising that, but we did have an alternative route if necessary. So we have, like I said, we have made contact with every district. So that is going well. And Title VI was amazing. And thank you to all of our partners in education. We had a group email going. Lucas on our team created a interactive spreadsheet. McKenna, our comms instructor, was receiving all the documents. They worked together, and then they kept all of you updated. McCall and Dr. Tharp, Rob Watson, Lance Melton, Shelley with NASBO. We were keeping everyone apprised each day on who had submitted and who we were still trying to get in contact with. So I just am really thankful and excited for turning the corner and working together as a team to support all of our schools and public education as a whole. So with all of us working together, we have had great success. We were able to get almost every school's Title VI letter sent off to the Department of Ed. And if we weren't able to get the updated assurance, we took theirs from eGrants from their submission in the summer. So we sent a document for every district in the state. So that was exciting. And a couple other things, I just want to say thank you so much to Paul for hosting us at MSDB, just like you did, McCall. And I'm excited to see Lydia here, and I got to meet her at the front door. Thank you, Gavin. Such awesome students held the door for me and everything, just wonderful students we have in Montana. I'm always impressed. So I also was glad to see that MSDB received a lot of great support from the legislature, and it was good to see Paul up there and all of us supporting the needs of MSDB as well. So as you talked about, there were many bills that will help support early literacy, school safety, mental health, suicide prevention, and many opportunities that I was happy to testify on and support throughout the session. Sorry, I have some allergies going on, so I sneeze, I apologize. I look forward to continuing to collaborate with all of you as we put all of this in place. So one thing I want to talk about, as you know, we're going to be going over accreditation quite a bit. Thank you. I appreciate that. I could go into the napkins. I know we'll be talking a lot about accreditation. I have worked with our team to go through the reports that you'll be seeing, and we're really taking a look at how we move forward. I know that we had a great response. It sounds like things went well this year. There's still a lot of work to be done. It still is time consuming for schools to complete the accreditation process. However, the school leaders I've been talking to do feel that it is important that there, is a standard to meet. And, so I think it's finding that balance and making sure that it's a meaningful process. I'm excited about the collaboration with Cognia for the schools that have that in place so that if they choose to use that very thorough, meaningful process, we can coordinate on accreditation just as we do with the colleges on joint accreditation. And so that is a positive. Another change that we're talking about and starting to work on for the future is a rural school model of accreditation. Just making sure that we are really considering how different and unique our districts are across the state of Montana. And we don't have too much of a burden on our rural school leaders and help them through that process and make sure it's meaningful, but not overly burdensome. So that's something that will be a good change in the future that we've already started working on. And we've had meetings already, and it's going to be a larger conversation. We're going to ask for many of you to collaborate with us on as we move forward and look at these schools that are struggling in accreditation and in their ESSA determinations through the accountability system. We're going to be working on updating the Every Student Succeeds Act and really want to look at that section where we talk about what does it mean to have rigorous action now that we've gone through a couple cycles of Every Student Succeeds Act accountability, as well as we look at our schools that are struggling in accreditation. A lot of times, we also see those schools are in high risk status with their audits. And we've been trying a lot of the same strategies for many years, and a lot of great work has been done, but we're really talking about what's the next step in transformational improvement and how can we really ensure that our taxpayer dollars and our federal funding that we receive to support these schools are going to, evidence and research-based strategies, while at the same time keeping the cultural awareness and strengths of the local community as part of the equation. So we're gonna be taking a deep dive into that and consulting with many of you as well as external experts. So looking at really taking a look at how we work with those schools and reach out to them to take the next steps. So you'll hear a little bit more about that when you do your accreditation review. I also want to mention that I'm just recently participated in a Macy meeting. It's exciting to work with them and participate, and I just look forward to continuing to find ways to elevate and support the work of Macy. You will be hearing from them, obviously, at your meeting. Paul Taylor will give an update on the payment schedule and touch on the STARS Act implementation. I have been attending the MAS meetings. So Deputy Superintendent Ron Whitmore and I have attended almost every MAS meeting. And we have been taking agency staff from the OPI with us to those. And so we're hoping, if Dr. Watson agrees, that we can have those folks assigned to each region for the following school year. We've brought them with us to get to know the group and have a chance to see how those meetings go. And so we're excited for our MAS regions to have that point of contact that we all appreciated as school superintendents. So looking forward to that opportunity to have OPI in the room and be able to answer questions or bring things back and just have that point of contact for our school leaders across the state. And this is just another example of our goal to partner and collaborate with all of you. And I wanted to mention also MASBO has asked us to partner. So in the summer finance meetings for clerks and superintendents, we will be doing that jointly with MASBO. So our finance staff and MASBO will be working together. We have also created a collaborative approach within the agency between program staff and finance staff. So when the budget details are submitted for funding, the cash request, so the program staff traditionally review the budgets and the grants as they're submitted in e-grants, and then the finance staff handles the cash requests when they come in. Well, there obviously has to be a connection because we need to make sure that there's a bridge between, you know, what was approved to be spent and then what's spent, and then making sure those cash requests are approved and it's not sent back and forth and creating another layer of burden on the schools. So we are all communicating now and working with MASBO to have a new process in place. And then hopefully in the near future, it's still a year or so out in development, but we will be replacing the e-grant system with a program called IntelliGrants that will be much more intuitive. And so very exciting.
Just about got any grants figured out.
Right?
20 years. but-
I want a showcase on that, but I when you get that up, because I'll believe it when I see it.
It's great. It's under development. I'm really excited about what's happening with it. So we have everyone working together on that as well. And speaking of data, Chair Tharp, I believe you're the new member on the 949 data modernization board as well. So they are excited to have you on there. It will be interesting to be in a different role in the data modernization group. And we're excited about how we're able to move forward. That project had been held up previously, and we have made great progress. We will be asking school districts to complete an MOU so that we can use a direct connector to their data. Right now, schools are doing interesting data uploads into files, and then we're putting them into different files, and then they're being transferred. And it has not allowed the functionality of the investment that the state made in the data project to work, to function. So if we use these direct connectors, because it is the school's data, they need to sign off on it so that we can pull the data through these direct connectors. I don't want to get too technical on everyone, but if we use the direct connectors, the model that was truly intended through the RFP process and the with Power School, who was able to get that contract, we can actually start to have these systems go live. So we will have interactive dashboards. And I'm hoping also we can utilize those as the report cards rather than the ones that we were previously using. They'll have more information on them. They'll be live, almost live, or at least weekly, have current and updated data. So we're making a ton of progress. We have changed the mindset on, you know, we know that we need to be careful with our data. We have FERPA, obviously, as, you know, a main overarching principle to make sure we are very secure and recognize student privacy and parental privacy in our data. But we also know that data is powerful, and we have to start using this data to improve our student outcomes. So we've been talking to Dr. McLean and Ochi a lot. We already have some use cases, some research we're interested in. For example, what's the perfect recipe, or what's the recipe for success so that our students not to need to take remedial math, right? Because we've talked about that a lot. So once we have these, once we have the data loaded properly, and then we can share the data and collaborate and put these research efforts in place, it'll be, I think it'll be a big turning point for our state and what we can do for education P20. So we're also collaborating with the Department of Labor on what does it mean for, you know, what courses, what CTE courses lead to a successful person in the workforce, licensed in the trades or other industries. So those are some of the things that we're really excited about. And I will talk about some of the new staff we have at OPI that are doing this work here shortly as well. So Another point that I wanted to talk about was assessment. I really appreciate the assessment committee of the board coming to the OPI and also meeting virtually online. I really respect member Quinlan's great knowledge and extensive time that she's put into assessment and the understanding of the rules and how all that comes to play. So we want to continue to work with you guys as we move forward on assessment and want to make sure we follow the best practices and processes that need to take place as we look at changing assessments or moving into new assessments. That's why we have the item on here that I will turn over to Cedar to discuss today. There is an opportunity to move to more well, I'll let her explain it because it gets technical and I don't want to use the wrong terminology, but assessment that we believe would be better for the alternative assessment for special education students. It would also have a cost savings to the state if we change into this new assessment. But in the, right now and going forward, we're committed to bringing these decisions and proposals to the Board of Public Education before we take action. There is a timeline to participate in this new alternative assessment. So apologize for not having the opportunity to bring it to you sooner, and in the future we will have a better pace planned out, but still wanted to make sure we got it before we took any action. So that's what Cedar will present on today. At the MAS meetings, we've talked about many things: accreditation, we've talked about the MAS assessment, and it's been really great. I am open to having the hard conversations and hearing what's working and what's not working, just as all of you are. And so I think that has been helpful to the school districts. We acknowledge that there are many challenges with the MAS assessment currently. And, I tried to start digging into that. I got many very thoughtful emails, not just saying this doesn't work, we don't like it, but very detailed, very thoughtful emails about what the specific challenges are. And then I shared those with our team, and we started to kind of put those themes together and then see what we can do, what solutions we can come up with. How can we go back to the vendor and address these challenges or issues? How can we move forward? And just really trying to be open-minded and not take it personally, but truly understand. And so we've had some really great meetings where we were able to find out that we can reduce the assessment footprint. We can, continue to look at reducing that time. We can potentially get to a point where we don't have to require all of the makeup, like a makeup test for each test. Like we can make some of these changes that will allow this to not be cumbersome for the districts. We also discovered that there was an opportunity missed in training teachers before, and that the launch, could have been done differently. There was a lack of training to teachers specifically and professional development, and that was identified. So students have been surveyed and teachers have been surveyed. There's also community of practices and third-party groups that are helping us get this feedback and information. So in the near future, we will have reports and detailed information from those surveys and those third-party groups that we can share with you guys on more information. And then also how we're making progress in addressing these concerns. One of the things that I did think was important is that many of the schools did say, it's not great and we're struggling with these components. However, we don't want to totally change course. We do think that we're heading in the right direction. And when, even at like the state meeting, where I meet with the other chiefs, with CCSSO, this is the direction assessment is heading in across the nation. So that was, I think, important to hear. So now that we know which other states are also on this path, we can collaborate with them and see, what challenges they're facing, how they're overcoming them in the through-year assessment model. So schools did say, we do believe this is the right direction. We just have some challenges. We needed more professional development for the teachers. We need to put out more information on best practices, on how you give makeup tests, or maybe when you don't need to give a makeup test. How we can reduce that footprint, how we can change the reports or do more data literacy on the reports so that they're useful. So hearing from districts like Great Falls who had good things to say about it and have found great value in the score reports was really helpful. They had a lot of professional development. They had an assessment coordinator that, has done a lot of work with the teachers. And so they have implemented this very well. So at the Summer Institute, what we're hoping to do is have the folks that have, figured something out or basically found a good way to use this or implement the mass assessments, that are finding it useful, that have overcome some of these challenges that some of the other districts are sharing, are going to share out their information. So it's not coming from the OPI team, it's going to come from the schools that have found ways to utilize the data. Some districts have quit utilizing other assessments like MAPS or those, because they have been able to use the score reports in place of. So have them share how that is working. We also can push back on the vendor and request different reports, data presented in different ways that is more in alignment with what teachers or parents are hoping to see. So those are all changes that we're taking a look at, and we're, thinking very thoughtfully and carefully through, and we would like to continue to partner with you guys on to get your perspective and be part of those conversations. So I think that, it's going to take some time, and we're hoping that we'll have continual improvements that the districts will be able to take a look at. So now I will switch to another fun topic of the federal education update. So we are keeping a close eye on all of the executive orders. We have talked to some of the staff at OCHI as well and given some directions to schools. For example, on what is a violation or not a violation of Title VI. So and we talked about this at Macy as well, our Native American students and practices supporting Indian education for all, for example, our tribes and our Native Americans are in a different class. They are not considered as part of the Title VI. So I've gotten questions from districts like, what if we have a summer program that's just for ESL students? Or what if we're doing something around Native American, culture students? Is that is not any kind of violation. So it's the Title VI information that came out. It's strictly on hiring practices or student participation based on race categories. That's what would lead to the level of a violation. So we still want everyone to be doing all of their great Indiana for All work and serving students that need to be served. All of that is definitely important to continue doing. That does not have anything to do with Title VI. So just wanted to mention that. And we just, in the last couple of days, started receiving our federal funds. We will have information coming out on that today. I did talk to a couple of legislators that called that were worried, that are hearing different things from school boards. I've gotten emails from teachers. A things like that. People are very worried about the federal funds and what's happening. And we just started receiving them. Like I said, so we'll have information posted today. And we've been doing weekly letters to the field rather than a monthly, also a monthly wrap up, but weekly letters. We're gonna send it out early this week. We're gonna send it out today, the federal funding updates. And then we'll make a public announcement with less detail because it gets pretty technical, as you guys can imagine. So we did receive our IDEA funds in full. And we have just a slight reduction because of calculation changes that were made. You guys, many of you are aware of maintenance of effort. So that happens at the federal level as well. And it wasn't that maintenance of effort wasn't met, but in the past when all of the states submitted, if there was any difference, then some of that was redistributed. So it was almost like a plus on the base. They did not distribute addition to the base, but our base was whole. So we did receive our IDA funds in whole with a slight reduction. There are a couple of grants that have not reopened that OPI has done a phenomenal job. The folks in these teams that write for these very technical, very competitive grants, I just want to say they do incredible work. And so we have had these great resources for MTSS and some of the CSPD region funding and some of those things in the past that we have not seen those grants open up yet. So some of those services that were part of the special ed team, we're trying to reevaluate and see how we can still support some of that work within the budget that we have received in case those grants don't open. So that is a couple of FTE at the OPI that implicates. So we're trying to see how we can still continue that work and shift things around. But we did receive our full base IDA funding, just as we did last year. So that's exciting. We received Title I Part A in full. And so we have that in place. We have not received, sorry, I'm trying to find my title funding page here. Okay, so Title I Part A in full. Usually that comes with Title C and D as well. So we have not received Title C, D, 2, 3, 4, or 5. So we are still waiting for that. But we were talking to CCSSO and the Department of Education, and CCSSO has been helping us, express the urgency of the need for these federal funds. Usually we are able to give preliminary ideas to school districts as early as February. And so this has been a little bit of a challenge. We do have staff working diligently. Just like we were talking about the STARS Act, we have staff that are working as quickly as they can to calculate the prelims on IDEA and Title I Part A. So we can get those numbers and notifications out to districts. It will be a little bit different because, as I explained, usually we wrap C and D into A when we send those prelims out. So they will be slightly less because they do not include C and D. So we do have Title I A in full and did receive the level of funding we have in the past for Title I Part A as well. One thing to note that has changed is that they did change the threshold of qualifying for Title I. So it is the formula that we have been told is likely to be put into place is that a district has 30% free and reduced lunch. Those numbers come from our school nutrition program calculations. And I don't know if you guys remember a couple years ago, there was a slight formula calculation change where high schools Title I allocations went up and elementary schools went down. They felt like often in high school, students aren't reporting or there's not as accurate of a record of free and reduced, right? Because they often leave campus or that kind of thing, not necessarily still go through the lunch line. So that was a change a couple years ago. I know in the district I was in, for example, it was a wash. Because my high school went up, my elementary went down a little bit, so it was about a wash. So we're gonna really dive into these allocation sheets and take a close look and see what this means for different districts. We still have the same bucket of funding. However, some districts that haven't qualified before may qualify, or some schools that haven't qualified before may qualify. So the funding may be spread out further. So some schools may have a reduction. But if you think about a district like Great Falls or Helena, where you might have had some schools that didn't qualify before that now do, the district might still be, like I was talking about earlier, a wash or level funded. But we're gonna have close eyes on that and be working closely to communicate that with the schools, and I'll be working with all my partners to help explain this and the understanding. So it's not that we receive less funding, but that the calculation and the formulas have changed, right? So we will be working with all of you on that, and we will, we decided that it's important to get this information out whenever we can, as much as we can, rather than wait until all of the title funding comes in, or all of the federal funding comes in. So we'll be sending it out as we can, and we are hoping to have, the July 1 prelim budget sheets with as much detail as possible. There's a potential that there could be a couple of the title programs still held up. So
just really quick, preliminary data sheets have not gone out yet.
no.
Okay.
Which I know is a challenge. I know some districts have been using, previous years' information. Some have reduced previous year by 20%. None of that guidance came from us. Some states have put out guidance. And that's just based on, there's no basis for that. So I have a hard time putting out, when there's all kinds of things up in the air. We've heard of other national organizations saying things like Title II may be at risk. We don't heard that from the Department of Ed or CCSSO. We've heard there could be a reduction in Title III. So there's a lot of different, maybes, potentials. I don't want to spread any information that I haven't heard directly is legitimate. So we have still not heard of any indication from the department or CCSSO of any particular program being reduced. So until we do, we'll just keep letting you know what funds we do receive and making sure you have those numbers as soon as you can. So Megan Spring, for example, right now the IDEA came in first last Friday night. So she's been calculating those ever since, and we'll be sending out numbers very shortly. And then Title I came in, Dr. Mergel, yesterday?
6:30 a.m. yesterday.
Yes. So, breaking news. And I want to thank Dr. Mergel as well as April, our CFO, and them for obviously monitoring. I get a text like Friday night, the funds, IDA funds came. So I appreciate, they are truly the ones monitoring and digging in with the teams to do the great work. So thankful to them. Okay, I need to move quickly through the next couple of items, but I thought that was important information. And if you guys have more detailed questions, of course, Dr. Mergel could help describe what we are working with on all of that. So I wanted to talk briefly about just a couple of things I've been doing. It's always fun to hear about all the great things that Dr. Tharp's doing. I am very, very thankful for your suicide prevention efforts. It's really important, and I know there's been some tough losses lately, so that is something that we want to continue to focus on. And we will find ways to make sure that we're providing as much support and training to the schools as we can. And was happy to support the legislative initiatives in those areas. I got to sit on a CTE panel in Missoula this week, and it was really interesting. I come from a CTE point of view of more of the construction world, and some of the folks on the panel with me were very in the tech world and talking about some things that were not in my wheelhouse. So it was really interesting to listen to them and hear about the opportunities that sometimes we don't think about in science and in STEAM and just really technical programs and opportunities that are out there. We were at the Cognizant building, and so just to hear about the incredible businesses and industries that they're partnering with, and MSU, some of the kits, the STEAM kits that they're sending out to schools was really exciting. But it is a huge goal of mine to work with all of you to build that bridge between industry and education. And I truly believe that we can make that happen by putting together like a CTE point of contact, but also a CTE team in our schools that then can partner with our industry leaders and with folks like Dr. Slinger, who offer, the dual credit courses as well as OCHI. So we can truly make a movement in that future ready indicator as we move forward with STARS. So Commissioner Swanson and I were on the phone last night talking about the work that's going to come together here, as we want all of you involved, all of our stakeholders in education involved, building that list of those credentials or those ways to determine a student has earned a future ready indicator, whether it's college or career. So we're excited to work with all of you on building that list and then building that opportunity into our data systems, and that being another thing we can display on our dashboard and give schools credit for in the accountability system, that future ready indicator. One thing we're also hoping, this is just a little sneak peek, we're still really working on the components of it, but there are some things that are coming up through the data modernization project that I think will actually give schools some tools that they can really utilize on a daily basis. And we're hoping to have a presentation for you guys soon where we can actually show some modules and some of these dashboards that are coming to life as we are getting these data components connected. So that is the main thing I want to talk about. One more thing, Dr. McLean and I have a meeting coming up, and we've already started meeting and been meeting, and I got to present at the education consortium meeting the other day with many of the EPP providers, but we're going to be collaborating more on preparing our future educators. So that's very exciting. We have been talking about the educator residency program and how we can continue to grow that. Really wanting to see those residency and apprenticeship opportunities expand so that we have those teachers in the classroom for that full year, where they really get that hands-on experience of participating in an IEP meeting, of learning from a master teacher, classroom management and routines, because we do need more educators in Montana. And I think them having that actual hands-on training for a full year will help them be prepared and feel more confident to stay in the field. And so we're excited about those opportunities. I think you'll see at the core school today just how valuable that is. I was blown away when I got to visit the core school and just talk to the high school students that were there, for example. So not only starting these opportunities and making sure they have more opportunities in college, but in high school, the teachers that are there from the high school are just absolutely loving it. And to see that ratio in the classroom and that support for those students was fantastic. It's truly a great model that I hope we can replicate and expand throughout the state, and will help us with that teaching pipeline. So that was really exciting. And I am going to turn it over to our team to do a couple of presentations. I'm going to participate as much as I can. I did find out I'm required to attend a meeting this mid-morning, and so I will have to step out for that. I hope I don't miss too much, especially don't want to miss, our students over here, but I will step out for a bit and be back as soon as I can. I did get to tour the core school, so I might pop in and do that if I can, but looking forward to the Indian education opportunity this afternoon as well. And so I am gonna turn it over here in just a minute to a couple of our team to do updates. Katie Bloodgood is going to introduce you to Dawn Severs, our Teacher of the Year. And she is from Power School, so I will let Katie introduce her to you and talk a little bit about some of the opportunities she's had and has coming up. And then also, of course, want to mention that the Teacher of the Year applications are open, and Katie can give you more information on the timeline as she's leading that work. And we're excited to start putting a committee together also for reviewing the applications and then the interview team. So looking forward to having you guys participate, as well as our other partners in education, and growing that, expanding that a little bit more to include more of our partners. And then also very thankful for Lisa being here. We are really excited about doing more to support our military families and our students that are entering the military. So really proud of our students that choose to enter the military. I did have an opportunity to go visit with some of the schools with Senator Sheehy. He talked about the fact that we have Montana is one of the only states that doesn't fill all of our seats for our military academies in the nation. In other states, there's thousands of applicants, and it's very, very competitive. And while we're the second highest in military service in the nation, second to Alaska, it goes back and forth. We have often leave vacant seats in our academies, and they're just like top tier universities that give great opportunities. So West Point and the 5 academies are a great opportunity students need to know about. So Senator Sheehy talked about that, and I talked about college and career opportunities as we visited high schools. So that was a great opportunity. But working with Lisa, there's some great professional development opportunities that they're offering at the base, as well as Katie and Lisa and Member Neeskins and I have been talking about what we can do to recognize and honor more of our military students and families. So whether it's the cords for graduation that are used in some states, or making sure that we get more schools involved in being Purple Star schools. I really think that we could have more Purple Star schools if people knew more about it and we got more information out. And it was truly rewarding to participate in when I was in Townsend School District. So just making sure you identify those families and then have things in place to support them. So that is exciting. So Katie will talk to you about those components. Cedar Rose will talk about the assessment item that you have as an action item tomorrow. And in the future, we will make sure this happens over multiple meetings. We will also have a quick content standards update from Marie Judish. And I just wanted to mention it's that time of year with graduation, and I'm sure Chair Langford of Macy might mention this, but just wanted to remind everyone of MCA 21315 to make sure that we do not prohibit any individuals from wearing tribal regalia at graduation. Just always want to give that reminder. Finally, just a quick staff update. I want to thank some of our departing staff. Chris Menard has been incredible in our school health division and with tobacco prevention for many years. And she's preparing to retire in the near future. Chris Morjo from Indian Ed, and Lori Wise and Becky Flanagan, who have been working in licensure. Those folks are retiring. They put in many great years at OPI, so we are onboarding and looking at reviewing applications right now. And we look forward to, now that session is over, moving into strategic planning and some things as we are, taking the agency in some new directions. So we've been meeting with other agencies and CCSSO to, figure out best practices and just make sure that I can be a strong leader, obviously doing my own professional development as we all do to make sure we are taking OPI in a positive direction. I am also excited to let you know that Dylan Clapmeyer is transitioning onto the OPI team. So he is going to be, thank you, yeah, I'm super excited. It's kind of coming full circle here. So he's going to be a chief of staff, and Aislinn Brown just joined us as our chief legal, and Angie Woodrow as senior data operations manager. She implemented data systems at the statewide level in other states and is excited to be with us in Montana. So we will keep you apprised and bring these folks to meet you in the near future. But I'll turn it over to Katie Bloodgood right now, and when I have to step out, Ty will take my seat if that's okay with you guys. Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Chair, board members, thank you so much. Again, my name is Katie Bloodgood. I'm the Legislative Director at the Office of Public Instruction. And before I introduce our guest of honor for the Teacher of the Year, I just wanted to go over a quick update on what's coming up for the 2026 Teacher of the Year. So as the superintendent stated, we just opened up the nomination process. So anyone who wants to nominate a teacher around the state can just go to our website. Or they can email me if they need additional information at mttoy@mt.gov. So like I said, the nominations are open. The nominations will be until June 13th. And then the nominated teachers will have until July 1st to complete their applications. And then from there, we'll go through the selection and interview process. But I want to keep my section short because I would like to introduce our current Teacher of the Year, Dawn Sievers. As the superintendent mentioned, she's a teacher up in Power, and she's a teacher of 7th grade English as well as 7th through 12th grade art and Spanish. And I want to turn over to her to talk a little bit about her experiences as a teacher and also the application process. And just a quick side note, when they were coming in, even the front desk receptionist was like, she's an awesome teacher. And I can tell just by dealing with her over the last couple of months, she's had an unending patience with me as we did the transition and through the legislative process. So she's just a real asset to the state of Montana. And with that, I will turn it over to Dawn.
Like she said, I teach in a small rural school. I think we have 100 students pre-K through 12. And I think my position isn't unique in Montana. I think almost every school in Montana could be considered rural. So that's been on my heart. I'm often asked to, when I became Teacher of the Year, why did you even become a teacher? And I come from a very underprivileged background, and teachers saved me. So that's why I teach. And public education and a quality public education was an essential lifeline for me. And I am very passionate that remains true for every student. I think another aspect as being the representative for teachers this year has been elevating the profession of teaching in a time when perhaps that has diminished. Elevating, as educated professionals and people who should be respected. Uplifting the next generation of educators, because as mentioned, the pool is small. I just got done speaking at the MSU graduation for those that are going into education. That university has, 12,000 students. There are 72 that are going.
And statistics prove that maybe 40-some% of those will not make it past the first 5 years. So my heart is heavy and passionate to uplift those educators, and what do we need to do to support them to follow their passion to teach children. And I don't think I could talk to the process. It is an arduous process to become Teacher of the Year, and you don't really know what you are getting yourself into. You are very honored when that email dings in your email, and you feel that you need to honor the person who honored you. So you fill out the application, which is heavy on community service, your professionalism, your education, what you do for your students. And there's a lot of writing involved. And then the process goes on to the floor, and then there's in-person interviews and such as that. I am so honored to serve this year, and it was more than I ever expected, working with CCSSO and the people there. My first large conference was in Santa Clara, which was full circle for me because that is where I was born. And here I come back as Teacher of the Year. And teachers are always pouring, into other people's cup. And this was an opportunity when Google and CCSO, everybody was filling into our cups. And the inspiration that you find professionally with these other teachers just set you back on fire. I've been teaching for 29 years. I'm tired, but now I'm inspired. And I have all these contacts that pour back in to Montana. So the financial aspect of pouring into this program and emotionally supporting your Teacher of the Year is invaluable. And I believe next step for me would be a space camp that I would be going to. And then Washington Week, which maybe you can speak to, was pushed back into September and October. But beyond that, I love to be utilized for instances like this to speak to you guys, instances in which I can speak to future educators. I would like to be utilized more in like speaking to teachers and professional development, things like that. So keeping those things open and extending invitations for things like that. But other than that, I don't think I have much more to say unless anyone would have any questions for me and about the experience and what it would be.
Thank you so much. And if you have any questions for Dawn and her experiences or anything about the application process going forward, we are available for your questions.
Kara, I have a question. I have a question. It's not about the process, but what's your opinion on supporting teachers, especially in their first 5 years?
I think that we need them to understand that it's 90% classroom management and it's 10% content. And being there as an emotional support, having veteran teachers that come up aside and giving veteran teachers opportunities to go and mentor and be with those younger teachers. I think steps that have been taken, no matter how much you are passionate about teaching, if you qualify for public assistance for your family while you're trying to pay off your student loans in your first year teaching, your passion won't feed your children. And so I think the steps that we've taken toward, increasing that in Montana, because we ranked very low, is good, but yet it's still not complete because your veteran teachers aren't getting that. So then the gap is like closing. So there is that. I think too that we need to have more programs to support education for younger scholarships and things like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it. Thank you for
Thank
making
you.
the trip over today. and-
Thank you very much. Congratulations.
We'll see you later. Mr. Chairman, can we introduce Lisa now, please? Thank you.
Everyone's got to follow the most well-spoken person in the room. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Lisa Sepp. I am the school liaison for Malmstrom Air Force Base. I am tasked with supporting our military families as they transition in and out of our great state of Montana and making sure that they have the support and resources they need to navigate our educational systems. So it's wonderful to meet you all in person. I did bring some literature if anybody wants to read up a little bit more on the Military Interstate Children's Compact Commission. It's quite the mouthful. We just call it MIC3. Would just like to thank Superintendent Hilden for the opportunity and thank Katie for working with me to be here today to talk a little bit about the support of military children throughout the state of Montana. Senate Bill 203 in 2013 enacted the Interstate Compact on the educational opportunity for military children in Montana with the intent of removing barriers to educational success imposed on military, imposed on the children of military families due to frequent moves and deployments because of their parents' decision to serve. The state's participation in the compact centers and is intended to facilitate timely enrollment of military children, appropriate placement of military kids, student qualification, eligibility, and extracurricular activities and programs, and encourage on-time and support on-time graduation of our military students. So, I mean, it's no secret for all of you working in education that policies vary from state to state. They're widely different. So this is intended to just provide some uniformity in their treatment as they transition from base to base and from community to community, and to provide them that stability that frequent moves often take away. So proud to be able to support the Montana MIC3 and work with Superintendent Hilden and her new team. Very excited for the change. Oftentimes a fresh perspective opens up a wide array of opportunities and new ways of supporting our military families. So I work primarily with our active duty families and their children. I'm stationed at Malmstrom. We are the only active duty installation in the state, but Montana is a heavy, we are heavy on guard and reserve for the Air and the Army. So we need to also look and review some of the things that we have in place to make sure that they're adequately supported, no matter where they live in Montana. If you have any questions about the compact, I'm a good source of information. But you can also reach out to our commissioner. His name is Mr. Ray Shaw. He's a retired legislator. He lives down in Sheridan and he is a busy rancher, but he makes time to come up here periodically to work on things with me. So we were able to, Commissioner Shaw and I go down, there is an annual business meeting every year for the month, for the MIC3. And this year it was in Albuquerque, so we got to visit with other states and their commissioners and their school liaisons in regards to some of the unique opportunities and programming that they have implemented across the United States, and thought that now that we have some fresh perspective at OPI, that we could maybe start doing some new things. Superintendent Hilden came down for Great Falls Public Schools celebration of Purple Star Schools. And if you're familiar with that or not, those schools are identified as having implemented additional military supports and embedded practices throughout to make sure our military families and their children have a proper welcome and resources to support them as they transition into our school system. We work frequently with Great Falls Public Schools because they house the majority of our active duty families and their kiddos. So we had an all-school assembly over at Riverview to acknowledge the work that Riverview has done to support their military embedded students and to acknowledge some Purple Star champions. We have a retired spouse who works as a librarian over at Chief Joseph. We have a school counselor who actually is at Morningside that you'll probably get a chance to meet today. His name is Mr. Montana Johnson. And he was the school counselor over at Loy Elementary, which is almost 100% military students here in Great Falls. And he did that for 5 years. And that is an unenviable task because those kids need a lot of support, especially when they newly arrive here in Great Falls. And then Mr. Mark Yeager, some of you may know, he is the CPE Career Pathway Advisor for Great Falls Public Schools. And he works with me a lot in increasing student access to the installation for those job shadow and internship and just career opportunity, broadening opportunities that we offer. So, you know, we had a nice ceremony over at Riverview. And then we do things like Month of the Military Child proclamations with our wing commander. We have done a lot of stuff within the local school system to acknowledge and support and teach children about military life and culture. All students matter, not just the military ones, but you know, we want to be good ambassadors to military service. So we bring our young airmen out to do activities within the school system and engage with them early. These are great opportunities for our young airmen to become ingratiated into our community a little bit more and get comfortable here in Great Falls. And then for our non-military kids to kind of learn about the important mission that Malmstrom does, which is nuclear deterrence. So at any rate, working with Katie and superintendent, you know, we have 4 initiatives that we kind of like to push, and these are going to look different depending on the think tank of people who are interested in helping us kind of come up with these new things. But we want to increase education opportunities to promote awareness of the MIC-3 compact. We live in a highly military supportive state, so I can happily report to you that we don't have a lot of compact issues. We work closely with Great Falls Public Schools to provide those professional opportunities to learn about the compact and supporting military kids. But we want to increase that statewide. And the best way to do that is through the resources and support that OPI can provide. Not just to active duty, but to Guard and Reserve families and their children too. We also want to collaborate with OPI to support teachers on unique military topics, develop lesson plans for teachers to use across the state. And then like could be anything from Veterans Day or to the impacts of deployment on children. Collaboration on professional development opportunities for teachers, maybe kind of creating a database or something that they can pull from that they can use within their schools. That's the hope anyway. Gonna be a little bit of a lift, but I think we can do it. We have a lot of great folks willing to share their lessons that they've already created with us. We'd like to look at and revise the Purple Star requirements for Montana, just to make sure that they're equitable for our rural schools with lower military enrollments. Like not everybody is Great Falls, where we have that high percentage. We do have military children everywhere across the state. So we want to make sure that we're not creating any unintended barriers for those rural schools to show their patriotism and participate in the Purple Star School program. And we want to make sure that the requirements are not so low that we trip over them. And they're kind of, you know, it's like a meaningless designation, but we don't want to make them so high that others can't attain them. So, you know, we just want to make sure that everything is easily accountable and, you know, easy to comply with. And then, you know, we want to encourage and support Month of the Military Child and Purple Star activities across the state. We don't want to localize it here just to Great Falls. Great Falls, obviously between the air base and Malmstrom Air Force Base, it tends to be a hub. But these things, we have Guard and Reserve bases all across the state. We don't want to center it here. We want to make sure we see it in other places like Helena and Billings and Bozeman and our smaller rural communities. So those are the wants and the wishes. And I think we have a good, working with Katie, have a good pathway to making some of those things happen. Pending your questions, that's my report to the Board of Public Education.
Well, thank you, Lisa. And like she said, that we have a lot of opportunities to expand the MIC-3 program. It's been very welcome in the state, but we think we can expand it and show also support for military spouses. A lot of them are teachers in our school or veterans who are exiting the military and you know, finding their home in Montana or returning home back into Montana, also assisting, their children. And there's a lot of things that we can do to grow this and use best practices that were developed in Great Falls and kind of expand that throughout the state, and have it personalized to Montana schools. McCreary is a great resource and they do have best practices, but there's ways that we can personalize it here in Montana. And then also working to recognize those students who are going to the military academy or when they're graduating, going into military service, and really recognizing and supporting them in those decisions. And I'd just like you to touch on one other thing, although it's not directly related to McCreary, is the PIR days that Maelstrom
Oh,
does.
yes,
That's,
okay.
an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, so I do, so I still maintain my teacher's license, because I worked hard for that piece of paper and I'm not gonna give it up. You know, I have, in my previous life before, going back to federal civilian service, I was high school special education English teacher with the Great Falls Public Schools. So I have a strong connection with them. And we were able to create opportunities for teachers to undergo some professional development to understand some of the unique obstacles that military children face, whether it's deployment, death, familial separation, all of those things. We talk about those, so we bring teachers out to Maelstrom every June for a 2-day PIR opportunity. The first day is visiting with our helping agencies and getting a mission brief from our wing commander. And then we dine at the dining facility on base with the rest of the airmen. And then we take a tour through our T-41 missile trainer. So Maelstrom's mission is nuclear deterrence. So for many of you, you may have seen signs throughout the community in regards to Sentinel town halls. So right now we're undergoing an exchange of those old Minuteman III missiles and putting new missiles into the ground. So we educate you guys on the nuclear mission. And then the second day, we go out to the missile alert facilities. So if you've driven around rural Montana, you see these antenna towers and these odd looking buildings in the middle of nowhere. Those are manned 24/7 by our airmen. And so we were able to travel out to the MAF and take you down into, you know, like underneath where they turn the knobs and do all the things and do all the monitoring. It's highly educational. So if you're ever curious about what's out there, we can show you. And then what we do in August, we do a mock deployment day for our teachers. And that's an opportunity to kind of learn about the deployment process, how that differs between the Guard and active duty. And then visit with our helping agencies and our support agencies for military families, so we can kind of educate you guys all on how to support our military families and the children in the classrooms. We know that teachers wear more than one hat. It's not just teaching math and reading and writing. You guys are social workers. You guys are counselors. You guys sometimes, you know, like have to take on the role of parent. So we ask a lot of our teachers. This is our opportunity from the military to give back and say thank you, and to arm you with some good information that you can take back and apply, and not just support military kids, but some of those other highly mobile populations that you see in your classroom. So, yeah. Welcome any of you guys who may be interested on the board for coming out. Would even be willing to host a special session just for you guys to just come out and learn about the mission at Maelstrom and see what's out here. I know our leadership would be excited to host you. We are talking quite a bit about getting the superintendent out. If the board would like to join her, we would be.
I signed up for PIR already.
Yeah, we would be thrilled to have you. You know, and I also will say that, you know, while we concentrate a lot on Great Falls Public Schools, we have military kids in and around the rural communities surrounding Great Falls. And if I could clone myself and do more with those schools, the goal is to do more outreach. We have Hobson Public Schools coming on Monday. Excited for them to come out. We've had Belt, we've had Fort Benton, some from Cascade and Vaughn, periodically. But for those teachers to come out and participate, you know, be happy to sign off on those continuing education credits to, you know, ensure their teacher licensure and just kind of make those things more accessible to everybody. So.
Katie, Lisa, we got a question from board member Quinlan. Madeline, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Lisa, thank you for your good work. I know you've been at it for a long time. I was curious if the number of military impacted students has declined, because I'm assuming there's been a reduction in deployments from the National Guard.
So, those numbers do fluctuate. I have, access to, the DEER system kind of shows me like the numbers across the state by zip code. And I can break it down by branch, Guard or Reserve, even in retirees who have those DEERS credentials to get, their services on base. There has been a slight reduction, I can say, but we also, see, like, now's not a great time to kind of look at those numbers. The best time, because right now we're in the height of permanent change of station season, so everybody's kind of heading off to their next installation, and then everybody's coming in over the summer. So to really kind of look at those numbers, we could pull from the last 4 years. I would say probably October 4th is what you guys use for your counts, to just kind of see. And I do see a slight fluctuation trending downwards, not by huge margins, but just by numbers of children, in our Guard, and then active duty as well. So I mean, those are numbers that we can provide you guys if you have interest. But I think, you know, our lack of, I think the lack of participation in those like academy days and some of these things just comes down to lack of visibility and awareness. Like, we're not raising, you see how like they have those like signing days for college and all of these things. Like, we can work with our recruiters to do similar things within schools. And then the court ceremony, that Susan mentioned, these are also things to acknowledge students for being a military child in their service in their own way, and then to recognize those children or those young adults who are going to enter military service. So, you know, without looking at the past 4 years, I think, you know, I would say it is a little bit lower, not by huge margins, but we can definitely get you those numbers if you need them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then also, please reach out to me. I'm a state officer within the VFW auxiliary. And so we not only support veterans, but we want to support active duty in every way we can. So I've got access to our 30 auxiliary folks around the state of Montana as well. So thank you for your.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quickly, because I know we got to keep moving, but I just want to mention, you know, really critical work. Like this would resonate with you, Gavin, for example, the MIG-3, make sure that students are eligible immediately for athletics. And they don't have to have that wait time just because of their transition due to military family situations, things like that, that I think are really important, making sure they get their credits. And when I started talking to Lisa and Katie about this work, our very first meeting, we had so many ideas, and Lisa was like, this is one part of my job, and I'm one person that does this work. And that's when I got on the horn with Hannah and member Neeskins, and we're like, oh, I've got people. We've got lots of passionate people about this. We can do more. We can do great work with this. So thank you so much. And thank you for everything that you guys do. And Katie for keeping all of that in place and helping this mission go along. So thank you for joining us today.
If you need to reach me, Katie's got my contact info. So those MIG-3 meetings are open to the public. Anybody who is interested in participating, please let us know and we'll send you an invite.
We're gonna get back to in person.
Yes.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I'm going to actually let Tyler take over for me now and Cedar do a quick update on the assessment item you guys will have tomorrow.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Cedar Rose, last name spelled ROSE for the record. I serve as the assessment director for the Office of Public Instruction. On page 29 of your board packet, you have the assessment update. There's 3 topics in there. I'm going to just briefly cover some overall adjustments leading into the 2025-2026 assessment year. Really focusing on what the superintendent and executive director Flynn mentioned, the proposal for the adjustments to our alternate assessment system, which is an action item for you tomorrow. I'll briefly recap our 24-25 monitoring and support, which drives a lot of those adjustments in our proposals moving forward. And then I just want to also provide you a brief update on our science CGSA grant work, which we are in the development phases of. As the superintendent mentioned, we've heard a lot of feedback about MAST. There's a lot of discussion about short-term as well as long-term adjustments to make sure that assessment is really serving its purpose of providing useful information to students and educators to serve student success. So one of just the immediate ones that we are putting in place for next year is we're expanding our testing windows, going from 6-week windows to 8-week windows. I provided our schedule there. Keeping the beginning dates similar so we can still have that similar alignment so educators aren't going to have to go in and completely realign their schedules if they did a lot of work this year. We've already shared this with the schools. I've already had a lot of really positive feedback from that. I know one of the things that we've heard is it just feels time crunched. As you recall from last year, we had even shorter windows. So as we continue to hear that feedback, we need to adjust. This was one of the ones that we knew that we couldn't put in place quickly. We have continuous planning meetings with our vendor coming up in June, where we'll continuously look at those short-term and long-term projections for how we can continue to make the adjustments based on all of the feedback we've received from our districts. We're also making adjustments to our score reports. This year we had comparative performance bands based on pilot performance because we have yet to do our standard setting process where we go through and we really set with a group of educators what is proficiency for each one of our grade levels and each one of our subjects. We are going through that process in July, at the end of July in Bozeman with a group of educators, which we're really excited about. So once that process is set, we're able to adjust those performance bands to really have those more aligned with what proficiency is defined in the state. So that's an upcoming improvement that we're really excited about. Briefly, there's ACT changes coming next spring for us. The ACT testing format is changing a little bit. They are reducing the number of overall questions and the test length to allow more time per question. That's a national change. So we have no impact our ability to change that, but it's going to be beneficial to our students. Also, just something of note, the college reportable composite score is going to be changed in how it's calculated. That is going to be calculated from English, math, and reading. We will still be administering the science and the writing component, as that is part of our accountability system. ACT has done a lot of comparability research to ensure that achievement levels will remain the same, so we don't have to go through and re-standard set for our state reported proficiency. And then one just small change of note, our access for ELL's assessment, we are moving that window back to after winter break. One thing that we've heard in this, the last few years is where some of our schools are still really trying to identify our ELs moving into that November and December timeframe when we're starting to test. So based on that feedback, we're really focusing with the Private 3 coordinator to ensure that our EL identification is happening at the first half of the year. So that way we can start testing in January. I'm going to bump around in the board packet a little bit because as the superintendent mentioned, tomorrow you will have an action item for proposed modifications to the statewide alternate assessment system. That is on page 143 of your packet. Just some background on our alternate assessment models. We provide alternate assessment models for our alternate assessment versions for every statewide assessment that is required under ESEA SS section 1111. This is about 1% of our student testing population. So that means for math and ELA, which we test in grades 3 through 8 and 11, about 900 students take our alternate assessment. And for science in grades 5, 8, and 11, that's about 400 students. So a very small percent of our population, but still we want to make sure that our assessment is serving that population of students. And from our observations and what we've heard from the field, our current model is not necessarily doing that. Currently, we have a lot of different components coming together to make math, English, and science assessments work. We have multiple platforms, we have multiple tools, we have multiple trainings. We're in a different consortium for one. We have item sharing and development MOU for the other. And this has really created a duplication of efforts, of funding. And what's most important, I think impactful, is it impacts our schools and having to have multiple platforms, multiple trainings for our educators. And we are really in a unique time frame, and that's what brings us to kind of the short time frame on making this decision, where we are able to transition out of some of those item sharing agreements, away from those platforms because of contracting, to go to a system where we are able to have all of those alternate assessments within the same assessment vendor, within the same model, and also within the same platform. Currently, we're using the multi-state alternative assessment, or MSAA, for math and ELA. That is the only assessment in our state that's delivered through the MSAA Cognia platform. So for just that assessment, only for that group of students, we have to administer on a separate platform, which is really challenging. That's a summative administration. It takes about 1.5 to 2 hours per subject. And we are in the final available contract year for our delivery system for that. So next year, regardless of what happens, we would have to recontract. For science, we are with the alternate Montana Science Assessment that's delivered through the Cambium platform, which also houses our general Montana Science Assessment. That's also a summative administration. Another approximate 1.5 to 2 hour administration time. That's a computer adaptive test of about 50 items. And we are in the final year of an item development and item sharing MOU with other states. So that leads us to the point we are now where we have the opportunity to align. We are bringing these changes to you as part of ARM 1056-1014. Dynamic learning maps, which is also abbreviated to DLM, is an assessment system that would house both math, ELA, and science.
Wow.
What's really unique about it is it uses essential elements, and I've provided some resources linked to there, but they directly connect academic expectations for students with their most significant cognitive disabilities to grade level content standards. So there's a direct link, and those are aligned to our Common Core state standards, which is really exciting. If you go to their website, you can see these are the standards. These are those essential elements that are assessed. It's assessed on or administered on the KITE platform, which is the same platform we are using for MAST. So those students in grades 3 through 8 would be using the same platform as their peers. We are proposing to go to an instructionally embedded model for math and ELA. That is currently used by 7 other states in the United States. That is 2 assessment windows, but when we're thinking about assessment windows, it is assessing availability from September to December, and then from February to May. So it is really opening up the time frame for educators to be able to assess when their students are ready. The embedded instructional model allows a lot of educator choice in the testlets, not only to choose which essential element the student is ready to take, but also which linkage level, which can directly align to IEP goals. As long as those essential elements and the linkage levels are administered to fulfill a blueprint requirement, that is the testing requirement for the fall and again for the spring. So regardless of that student's ability level or what the student is working on in their IEP, there is a testlet that will align to that student, which I think is really valuable. It is not just a one-size-fits-all testlet or test at the end of the year. Each test is administered is about 3 to 9 items. The DLM has some example testlets that they've released. They're really interesting to look at. They are short, they're easy to administer, and they take about 5 to 15 minutes to complete each one of those testlets. The science model would be a summative model, but once again, it is still using the testlet model, and you're able to assess from February through May. So very short administrations throughout that time period. There is a fixed blueprint of 9 testlets, so not having that administrative choice, but still having that linkage level to be able to decide the entry point for what a student would be able to take. We have vetted DLM with some stakeholder groups already. We have shared this with our special education directors. I presented the higher education consortium member this spring, and then we also presented this to our state special education advisory panel. And I've also presented or provided to you some DLM information and resources for tonight if you want to link into them. DLM has provided a Montana specific module that would go through all of the language and really goes into the blueprint. So if you have some time tonight ahead of the action item tomorrow, it's really beneficial. We've provided this publicly to all of the stakeholder groups, so they are able to go in and look at that as well. I've also provided you just a brief assessment comparison chart, so you can see what we're proposing to move to with DLM. Timing is very similar, but what we're really excited about, especially for our administrator side, is that training. You will notice that right now there is a separate training for math and ELA and science, which is about 3 hours per year for our educators, and they have to take that every single year. For DLM, that would be 2.5 hours for all of those assessments the first year, and then 1 hour each subsequent year. We can also provide group trainings for that, so we can bring educators together. We can do that virtually, provide that training, and then we can take that quiz individually, which is different than what we've been able to do in the past. So based on what we've heard from the field and what we've discussed with DLM and other states that have adopted DLM, we think that this model best aligns with our vision of supporting instruction for our students, as well as reducing the administrative burden of assessments for our educators. So if you have any questions about that, I will be happy to answer those. Moving on quickly, because I know we're a little bit short on time, I've also provided in the assessment update. Every time this year, I talk about our monitoring, how far we've traveled across the state. We were able to monitor 60 districts this year across all of our assessments. Every corner of the state. I think that's our favorite part of everyone on my team's job, is to be able to go out in schools. That's where we get so much of that information that drives the adjustments that we want to make. Because we know that if our assessments are not serving students and serving schools, they're going to be siloed in something that you just thought of the extra to do. So the more that we can listen to our educators, the more that we can be in the field, we know the more valuable our assessments are going to be. We also pride ourselves on the amount of field support we provide. When I drafted this document in April, we had provided 3,500 support inquiries that we had helped support our field on. That is far exceeded what we were at the end of last year. Like I said, both those site visits and all that field support drive all of our improvements that we strive to make. Finally, we are working through our Science CGSA grant, which was awarded in September of 2024. That was a $4 million grant for scaling Montana aligned to standards through year math assessment to our middle school science. So taking what we've learned from our 3-year models and math and ELA and really expanding that to how can we support the instruction and science with assessment. I've provided the absolute priorities and the competitive priorities on which we were awarded for that. The grant timeline is there. Right now, we are in that 2024-2025 framework development, where we are really deep in engaging our stakeholders in the development of our initial Questlet specific specifications and task modules. So we are bringing together our stakeholders to be able to really decide, what do we want this test to look like? What does it need to accomplish? What do we want our score reports to look like? To really front load all of that design work. So as we go into our small scale piloting next spring of about 4,500 students, our expanded pilot the following year, and then an operational field test in 27-28, we're still really grounded in the theory of action that we're currently developing. The Center for Assessment, who developed and helped facilitate our math and ELA theory of action, is helping us once again with this theory of action. We have a task force of 14 Montana educators. We have been meeting virtually over the last few months. And then last month, we were able to convene for 2 days in Helena with those educators to really dive deep into what do we want this to look like. And that finalized theory of action, which will be published this summer, will really inform the assessment framework development going into that piloting. I know that was a lot of information over assessment. There's a lot of information in your packet, but with that, I will stand for any questions that you have.
Thank you, Cedar. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
One really quick. Okay, if, tomorrow we're going to talk about voting to change the alternative assessments. What are 1 or 2 things that will really be missed from the current assessments?
Mr. Chair, Member Rasmussen, it is hard for me to point out anything that will be missed from the current assessment model.
Thank you.
Chair, I did want to make a compliment. I actually am the one that gives the alternative assessment, so I am so thrilled that you are looking into making it easier and more streamlined for schools. Thank you so much.
Well, we appreciate that, and we have been looking at this, and we are very excited to change this model. So we hope that that you bring that consideration to your action.
Anybody, anything else you see here? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Do you have anything else you want to speak to?
We were going to do a content standards update with our teaching and learning senior manager. I don't know if Marie is online or if we have time. If you'd like to move forward, that's very short.
We keep it tight, yeah.
Okay.
By the way, board members, we are way tight on schedule, so if you need a break, just don't leave us without a quorum at the table. We're just gonna keep powering through until lunch, so if you need to step out, that's staff and board, we're just gonna keep going, so. Marie, welcome.
Good morning, Chair Tharp and board members. My name is Marie Judish. That's Judisch for the record, and I'm the Senior Manager of Teaching and Learning, and I'm excited to be your quickest report of the entire day. Briefly, at the beginning, you'll see on the report that the first thing we're looking at is English Language Arts Standards. I'm not going to spend any time there because I will be spending an hour with you tomorrow on those. Just know that the Economic Impact Survey is closing today, and I will be working on that Economic Impact Statement for presentation at the next meeting. Math content standards, world languages, and English language proficiency we're working on those guidance documents, hoping to have those all posted here very soon. They're in those final revision, tweaking, and proofreading stages for the baseline guidance documents, not the full suite of what we hope to come out in the next coming months as we implement those content standards. So with that, I will stand for any questions you may have on these.
Thank you, Marie, appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Pretty robust update from the OPI. We can go ahead and move on, and we'll hear a lot from them today and tomorrow.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, moving on, item number 4, Commissioner of Higher Education, Dr. McLean, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Very good to be here with all of you this morning. First, I'd like to begin by expressing my sincere appreciation to Mr. Firthmeyer and his team at MSDB for hosting us. I would have been down here a lot sooner, but he caught me up in the office and we had a good visit up there. Always good to be here. Can't wait for the students later, and I'm looking forward to our travels across Great Falls this afternoon. Thanks so much for arranging those. We look forward to showcasing the core school with you. It's pretty exciting what's happening over there. I'd also like to welcome our student Lydia. We look forward to working with you, all of us in the Montana University system over the course of the next year, and we'd like to signal our deep appreciation to Member Mao for his leadership and the strong connections really between this board and the Montana University system that you have forged. And we wish you all the best as you move beyond high school, and do hope that if you should ever have higher education needs in the Montana University system, you'll look us up. Then I'd also like to thank Director Flynn for her participation in our post-secondary rural roundtable. Thank you for coming and joining us for that effort. It really fits into so much of what you heard from the superintendent, so much of what we're looking at in the university system about making sure that our tentacles of the university system reach our folks in the most rural frontier parts of our state. Before I get into some of the legislative pieces, I would just like to signal our deep appreciation to the superintendent and to her team for the strong partnerships that we continue to forge with her office. And I would tell you, amazing things have happened already in a very short time. And so for you, Tyler, for the superintendent, Julie, who's not in the room, we have Cedar back there. So many wonderful things are happening with OPI, with the Office of the Commissioner of Higher Education, and really at an unprecedented pace. And we are just so doggone excited about all of it here at the university system. One of the items we are working on with the Office of Public Instruction right now is the potential of a direct admission effort that we hope to launch as early as this fall. And so certainly a lot of data pieces need to be sorted out, but we hope that we can connect with the K-12 data sooner rather than later. That was certainly part of the conversation for the last few years, and it's certainly a part of the conversation going forward. And one of the things that we hope will result in that is making sure that the communication comes from the superintendent and the commissioner of higher education, that all of our Montana high school students get a letter of conditional admittance to one of our campuses in the university system. Additionally, I want to focus on just a couple of things that came out of this legislative session. In particular, we heard a lot about the STARS Act this morning, and there is a section in there that deals explicitly with the university system and with the Office of Public Instruction in a partnership with the Department of Labor and Industry on the industry recognized credentials. And we look so forward to developing our strong partnership with both of those agencies and delivering that list of those IRCs as they fit so much with our work that we're doing. Additionally, one of the bills that we continue to watch and wait for the governor's signature on is Representative Crow's House Bill 499, which would provide funding for a Montana Grow Your Own model. When the governor signs this, if he signs it, we will post the RFP to the Montana University System website, and grant awards will be made to 2 educator prep programs to deliver innovative grow your own models that really speak to so much of what you heard the superintendent said was important. Things like apprenticeship, things like making sure we connect our high school students to the post-secondary pathway of education. Another area where we continue to grow our partnership with the Office of Public Instruction is with the educator residency. We've met a number of times this year already to iron out the details of the agreement that will guide us this next year in the residency work. One of the items that I'm really excited to share with you is a mini grant solicitation seeking proposals from educator prep programs to strategically design an undergraduate educator preparation pathway, including theory and practice, to align with the Montana Educator Residency Program. And those last few words were taken right from the solicitation. And so all proposals will be expected to highlight a full implementation date no later than fall of 2026. And thanks so much to Dr. Merkel and to Crystal for their partnership with us and in managing that, because we think what that will do is that will tee up the residency so that it is a fully integrated part of a student's educator prep pathway. Next, we continue to wait on the governor's signature, like everybody in the room, for House Bill 2. But we wanted to bring to your attention a couple of items that impact our tribal colleges. One of those items is that for the first time ever, with the governor's signature, Montana's tribal colleges will receive funding for 1-2 free. And we think that that's going to lend itself to a very important opportunity for students on or near our reservations to engage with our tribal colleges in getting dual enrollment. Additionally, I think Representative Board Member Slinger is also very pleased that our community colleges are included in that 1-2 free funding. And we think that that's a real game changer for our students all across the state. And we think it's going to create opportunities not only for our tribal colleges, but for our community colleges as well, because we think that that's a seamless and easy on-ramp for our high school students to post-secondary opportunities. Second, I wanted to share with you that the Tribal College HiSET has been operated by the OCHE since 2019, but as a result of changes made this session, it will no longer be housed at our office. And then finally, the last piece that I just want to share with you that is exciting around the legislature, that is, if it moves forward, that tribal colleges and universities will receive an increase to the state funded non-native beneficiary, and that's really significant. And so really just a lot of good collaboration with our tribal colleges. These are all of our students. They come from our K-12 schools all around the state. And so I just wanted to highlight those things. And then I just want to close just one more time, signaling to the strength in this partnership between the Office of Public Instruction and our team at the Office of the Commissioner. This data piece is critical to the P20 work that we know, and we have had conversations with the superintendent, with Mr. Klattmeyer, with Tyler, with Ms. Bloodgood at the back here, around making sure that we get to a better place in this data collaboration so that we can provide seamless opportunities, P20, all of Montana students. And we are just so doggone excited about the partnerships that we continue to forge with the superintendent. So with that, Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Dr. Wade. Anybody have any questions? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All right, moving on. Item number 5, student representative report. Mr. Mouth.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The first thing I'll start with is obviously introducing Miss Lydia Comstock, our new student representative on the Board of Public Ed. She's a sophomore at CMR, right? And like I said, she's a sophomore, so she's the opportunity to serve 2 terms like I did, which I think is a great opportunity to deepen the relationship between this position and what you guys all do. So just before this meeting, her and I got coffee this morning, got to meet each other, introduce each other. It's great, and I'm excited for all of you to work with her moving forwards. About the application process for the student representative position, there were 6 applicants. They all met in Great Falls, I believe at the end of March. So it's been a couple weeks since this was decided. And McCall and I are going to help her ease into this role, and I'm really excited for all of you to work with her in the future. Yeah, definitely. So the next thing I'll talk about, is the new MASC board, and that's the Montana Association of Student Councils. They elected their new board right around the same time as the student representative. So districts 1 and 2, that's Northwest Montana, is JJ Campbell from North Star High School. And then Idle Burgle from Capitol High School is representing our district. Central, kind of the Billings area, is represented by Michael Norman from Laurel High School. District 5, kind of Northeast Montana, is Bailey Billmayer from Chinook. And then District 6, Southeast Montana, from Custer County High, is Brooklyn Brabant. So that's a wide range of student perspectives from all kinds of sizes of schools, and they're all going to work closely with Lydia and hopefully with you guys. If you guys remember 2 years ago, there was a MASC student panel that kind of came and spoke to you guys. So I'm hoping we can make that happen again. Yeah, they all seem great. So one thing I wanted to talk about, just some kind of miscellaneous items. AP testing week wraps up pretty much today. I don't think there's any testing in Helena tomorrow, at least. There were some issues, and College Board is allowing students to retake several exams just because this is the first year where it's transitioned to full online for some tests. So like accessing the formula sheets and stuff like that you need for like AP Chem or AP Statistics was really difficult. So tens of thousands of students have been given the opportunity to retest. I can't speak to the extent of how these experiences have been across the state, but I know in Helena, it's been hard. Just because there's everyone needs to have their own computer. You have to fit everyone into a building that has I don't know, I'm not exactly sure how it works, but school Wi-Fi or something, so you can test on Blue Book. And there were definitely some issues that came up, but those were worked out as the 2 weeks kind of went on. Another thing I want to talk about is the legislative session. This was the first time I kind of went and observed and even testified on some of the stuff that was happening with a friend, Charlie Snellman. Maybe some of you might know. Yeah, he's pretty involved in all that kind of stuff. I was happy to see the passage of Senate Bill 369. I testified on that, and then I sat and observed. Charlie and I sat and observed to watch some sessions of debate on the STARS Act. So that was great. Some more stuff I want to talk about involves the military community. So like Superintendent Hedeland mentioned, Montana is struggling to fill its academy spots. There was a round table with members of the national delegation and this year's appointees to military academies that happened a couple weeks ago, where they really wanted us to go out into the community and ensure that, or talk to the community and make sure that everyone knows that this is a great opportunity for students to serve in the military, get a free education. You're going to a very prestigious institution. And then you're adding to the most powerful fighting force in the world. I do also want to mention that Academy Days the last 2 years have been canceled repeatedly across the state, which I find absurd because I remember my Academy Day 2 years ago. I was let's see, it was the Air Force and Naval Academy had a combined Academy Day, and 35 kids showed up and they just weren't having it. It was just a person there saying, "Hey, sorry guys, you got to go home." No one's coming today, which we thought was insane. So I was really happy to hear what the folks from MIC3 were talking about, because I think Helena is the next logical step with their operations set up here in Great Falls. With one of the highest military dependent student population ratios in the whole state. It's the capital city. And I can think of numerous Purple Star possibilities for schools in Montana and educators in Helena. So I'd love to help them expand their outreach to the capital city, and I'll get into contact with those guys, see if we can make something happen with local education leaders. I think that's all I have for you guys. I am going to be attending Military Academy at West Point starting. Thank you. Thank you. I leave the 25th of June, so this is my last board meeting, and I want to extend my deepest feelings of gratitude and appreciation to all of you for making this such a great experience. It's definitely bittersweet, but I know that when I'm sitting down, pants too tight, eating nuts and granola bars, I'm gonna remember the sweet times I spent with all of you. So thank you. I appreciate it. And with that being said, I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Gavin. And I too was shocked to find out that we're not filling our academy slots. I assumed it was that when I see those things come across, I assume that there must have been a highly selective process to try to weed it out. I had no idea those were open. And so that's why, I offered, through the VFW and auxiliary to try to figure out ways to continue to promote that. So.
And are you saying that it was not the students that canceled them because of no students? It was.
Yeah, no students showed up for at least my academy day in April 2024, but I mean, they didn't come. I'm not sure exactly who was supposed to come, but no one showed up. It's funny. Representative Zinke, I know him through my parents, and he was asking if I was able to be nominated by him, and I'm like, no, I'm not in your district, just because there were so few kids in the Western District who had applied through him to receive a nomination, which I thought was crazy. I assume the same as you, that it was a highly competitive process like it is everywhere else, but it's just not the reality.
Well, I just wanted to, Lydia, welcome. You have huge shoes to fill. The last two student reps that we've been honored to work with have been fabulous. And I continue to hear stories about previous student reps and all that they've contributed to this. And so we welcome you and look forward to getting to know you more and working with you over the years. Gavin has done such an excellent job that McCall and I have nominated him to the NASB Distinguished Student Service Award. And we won't hear about that for a few more months. And maybe we can get a hold of you sometime while you're.
Somehow.
I appreciate that.
And it'll be later in the summer and you'll probably be buried in sweat and dirt. But we very much appreciate you. And before Dr. Slinger gives you bling and tries to recruit you to Miles Community College.
Sure, thank you. So, as always, I come bearing gifts. I know we're going to West Point, probably couldn't get into Miles, but that's okay. I would have done a waiver for you, but, so I figured you're not gonna walk around with the Miles Community College shirt, but I thought, well, he might this one. So this is the Miles Community College cow tipping team. So,
that's great.
yeah, I think you would look outstanding.
I'm gonna show up to our day in this thing.
That's right, that's great. And then, of course, a little mug there for the college also. I'm so proud of this. Thank you.
Do you have anything else, Gavin?
The team.
All right, moving on, item number 6, update on Montana's 250th commission. Chris.
42 years.
Board members are on page 42.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. If I'm still going at 11, McCall, just cut me off. I want to get you guys back on track. But my name is Chris Averill, and I am the chair of the Montana 250th Commission. I know we have some new board members here, so just very briefly, the commission was established by the 2023 Montana legislature, and it has multiple directives. One of them is to plan for and commemorate the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence next year. So that's our birthday next year. And the reason I'm here today is one of our call outs is to work with partners, including the Board of Public Ed, to collaborate on three particular items. One is increasing participation in the US citizenship test, the civics test that you take if you want to become a new citizen. Two is increasing youth proficiency in US and Montana government and history and Indian education for all. And three is recognizing schools for outstanding achievement in those categories. So when I came to you last year, we were pretty new. We were just finding our way. We're an 11-member board, all volunteer. Two of the appointees are from the Board of Public, from OPI and OCHI. And so we meet quarterly to plan out all of these things. There's a whole bunch of things that we're tasked with, but I'm going to provide an update on just a few of the education related things. And let me preface that with, as Dr. McLean mentioned, we're all anxiously awaiting the signature of House Bill 2. If we're not line itemed out, we have $1 million in there for the commission to engage in some of these activities. And there's a requirement that at least half of that go towards educational opportunities. So it's very vague, very open-ended, but we would come back and look for ways to collaborate with you, OPI and others to make sure that money is being spent wisely. It's achieving its purpose. We sunset at the end of next year. So part of what we're doing is obviously the celebratory side, but we're also looking at some lasting things. And in that vein, one of the big things I think we're really proud of, and this came from the sons and daughters of Montana pioneers, they had this idea. They want to take the American citizenship test that I was talking about and kind of make a Montana version. So it would have maybe 50 to 100 questions like the citizenship test does. And we're looking to get this digitalized so that students can take it. They can earn prizes as a result of good achievement. One of our board members from Colstrip schools is working with them to refine and fine tune these questions so that they're relevant. They're not, too easy, not too hard. They're relevant to what we would want students in Montana to know. And so once we get that activated for next calendar year, we're going to be looking to the board, to OPI, to others to get this into the school so people are aware that it's happening. And then it would hopefully live on beyond that, online, so that this could still be something that schools are able to integrate into their curriculum. We'd be doing something similar with the citizenship test that we talked about as well. So trying to make it as accessible, as easy for students and schools to access. And then at least while we're active as a commission, trying to get some incentives and prizes for students there. Another, and this is in your packet, and I just threw a few things in there for reference, but next month is National History Day competition in DC. We've had our regionals and our state competition year over year from 24 to 25, we've doubled our number of schools and students participating. It's been a really great experience to see the Historical Society and Montana State University get this program back up and running in the state. And so for next year, I think we'd love to have the board's help with getting the word out and getting more teachers and more students excited and involved. And again, I think one of the things we're thinking about with some of this funding or our fundraising is how can we help pay for some of these students' travel to DC, because that is of their own accord. They were responsible for their own travel. I'm excited that I'll be able to go out and judge one of the days this year. So I'll report back on the excitement there and how Montana students fare. And then there's also a 4th and 5th grade poster contest. We started this year with a pilot, getting them into certain schools, just so that, younger kids can feel more invested in this process of learning history and understanding its importance. This year, Montana 250 sponsored 3 special awards at our state's National History Day, Montana Veterans History, Montana Achievers and Achievements, and an Excellence in Indigenous History and Culture. And they were all very impressive presentations from the students. One other thing I'll just briefly mention, and this is tangential, but I think it can work. We're undertaking an effort called Montana Tapestry, People and Places from 1776 to today. And it's going to be a series of pop-up banners. A lot of them we're working with FWP to get them in state parks. But again, with increased funding, we're going to try to get it into museums and schools. And what we want to do is really help. Part of the mission that we have here is to recognize what our land looked like in 1776. And how we as people have changed that landscape. And so what we'd like to do is try to find ways to, again, encourage, whether it's field trips to different locations, actually bringing the panels to the schools is to get students to understand sort of that arch of history, that timeline. Knowing that we were not a colonial state, obviously, but knowing that there were things happening here on the land in 1776. So there's a lot of other things going on. I don't want to take up a lot of your time. My sort of asks to you are one, of course, as we're going forward with National History Day. I think that's just such an easy way to get students involved and interested in history. Any ideas you have, any ways that we can partner with you to get the word out on that for next year would be fantastic. Two, as we're putting together these citizenship tests and trying to get them out as far as we can, it'd be great to have your help and your guidance as to, best practices, things we can do to be effective in spreading the word and making them a lasting contribution to what we're doing. And then third, ideas, efforts, things you're hearing in your, Dr. Tharp, you mentioned being VFW auxiliary. One of our groups of partners we need to be working with more closely is veterans organizations. We have good connection with the Legion, working with those groups to hear what they're doing, what they're planning, what we can help them plan and do. Ideally, again, with this funding, we'll have what's called a re-granting program where we'll be able to give money to each county and tribal reservation and the Little Shell to try to get them to do something related to our history, whether that is specific to the 250th celebration or again, some of these lasting projects. I think last time I was here, Dr. Rasmussen mentioned the book, the Montana project.
Yeah.
And so, there were some of those that came about as a result of the bicentennial where they were funded through the Legion at that time. Whether a community wants to do a history, update a history of its own community. We really want to encourage communities and individuals and organizations to think what they could have as a lasting impact and let us be the ones to help them financially through support, through resources. So those are really the biggest things that we're focused on now. Again, we'll see where we're at in a couple of weeks with funding. We have to do our own fundraising as well. So a lot of this will depend on how much money we're able to bring in, but I'm happy to take any questions, talk offline about some of the more exciting things as well. Yes.
I was wondering with the passage of House Bill 591, which is the Celebrate Freedom Week, if the commission has given any thought to kind of providing resources for schools or how perhaps some of your endeavors could roll out maybe that last week of September to coincide with that new requirement that's coming July 1.
That's a great point. Thank you, Mr. Chair and board member. I had an interesting perspective there because I came in support and I believe this one came in opposition. So we worked. We worked.
Not the revised.
Not the revised. No, the original one was a little far flung, but I thought it was a good effort to tie some of the things that we're working on with that particular week in time with the Constitution. Yeah, I believe absolutely. There's either resources that we have available that we can help make more prominent, or one of the things I've been trying to do, and this may be not specific to the bill, but I'm trying to get, we're a commission that's established by the legislature, and there's an America 250 that's authorized by Congress that has a fair amount of resources and reach. And what I've been trying to do is get them to send more experts and authors, historians, things that we can maybe zoom in and have their perspective that we wouldn't normally get in Montana. And so certainly as we come up closer to that time frame, I think what I'd like to do is see is there an expert somewhere that we could have an opportunity for our schools to have a dialogue with, or a lecture series or something like that. I mean, we're planning some of this, for the broader public, but can it be really more targeted towards school? When I grew up in New England, and we actually had David McCullough come to my 5th grade class. And so it was like, how can we have that experience here where we have somebody of such renown coming into our schools and giving us a little insight and inspiring us. So I think that's a good touch point for us to be able to do that.
Twice. Thank you.
And I would mention, since you mentioned that, I believe it was Senate Joint Resolution 20. There's a couple of them, but this one is a specific call out to the history of Montana and Montana citizens contributions to World War II. As Senator Cupp from Northwest Montana. I saw that as a sort of really great resolution because it was so detailed. I think folks from the Legion and Fort Harrison may have helped draft it. That there's a lot of, how can we take this and turn it into curriculum? So I think that's one little piece from the legislative session that I've told some of the members that we'd like to be involved in going to, Legion or VFW, having a present, I guess it would, a lot of times they like to honor the World War II veterans who are still living. And then maybe talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that came about that are represented in this resolution that were Montana specific, whether it's Camp Remini or the code talkers. We actually had code talkers from Montana. So there's a lot of opportunities to take what's in that resolution and bring it to students, get them collaborating with veterans. So that, there's a lot of things I think we can do. I know I'm being very short given the time crunch, but I appreciate all your input and help in getting us as far flung as we can in this effort.
Thank you, Chris. And get a hold of me with some materials. VFW Department Convention is June 19th through 21 in Havre. So excellent. We're just a month out, so we can get some awareness and get some things distributed. That we wanted. Anything else we have for Mr. Averill? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our next item is number 7, MSDB report, and I'm going to hand things over to our MSDB liaison, Chair Schmidt. It's all yours for the next hour.
All right, well, thank you very much. I just have to say, I think this is my favorite meeting of the year, being here at MSDB, and I really appreciate all the effort that you all make to host us because we're not easy. What? I look forward to bowling this afternoon.
Yeah.
Is it this afternoon or tomorrow? This afternoon, yeah.
Kids are ready.
All right. With that, I will hand it over to Paul and you can give us an update on what's going on.
Sounds good, Chair Tharp and Board Member Schmidt. You'll bring up that PowerPoint. Chris, we have a few things to share with you this morning. The first is imagine trying to serve 1,200 students around the state of Montana. And that is a large task for our outreach department. And we've been lucky to hire Miranda Briggs as our outreach director last year and really starting to take a look at the way we service kids and maybe some ways we can better serve. So I have her given a presentation, then we'll do a few action items, and by then, the rest of our foundation board should be here to talk about an MOU with that. So I'm gonna turn over to Miranda to talk about an outreach consulting model that we're looking into.
Thank you for having me. I created a presentation just to kind of keep me on track and make sure I touch all of the highlighted pieces that I'd like to visit with you all about. I visited with my consultants and they've kind of been doing the same thing and approaching consulting the same way for about 10 to 15 years. And so we started talking a little bit about what could we change? How could we improve this? How do we recognize the opportunities that we have for, more digital options and more, the in-person is great, but how do we make sure that we're touching all of the students and also utilizing the current trends in a digital world? So there's a few changes that we want to make and approach it a little bit slowly in phases. And then I'm highlighting some of those expectations and this more broad team approach that I would like to take rather than individual consultants. And of course, this is the same presentation that I did with my consultant. So I put a couple quotes in there about change and that it's hard. So I want to do this in 2 phases. So looking at the start of next school year, August through December, we're kind of going to start the year status quo, kind of what we've been doing. But then we're going to dive deeper into this and really define these specialty teams and really begin working in the teams. And then around January through June, we're really going to dive deep into that plan and really start building protocols and building presentations and trainings and stuff that we'll do across the state. Right now, what we have is we have individual consultants working in different parts of the state. So a student in Missoula who is deaf and a student who is in, say, Sidney, Montana, who is deaf, has 2 different consultants that might be doing things a little bit differently, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But I want to add some continuity to that you know, anytime we meet the student who is deaf or who is blind or whatever, that we have a pretty standard protocol that, you know, if they move from Sydney to Missoula, they would know exactly what to expect. It wouldn't change just because it's a different concern. So we'll begin creating those documents. And then phase 2 will start at the beginning of the 2026 school year. And at that point, we'll have caseloads designed by these specialty teams, which the specialty teams will be on our next slide. So what I'd like to look at is building a team of consultants who are, you know, designated, and they're going to dive deep. They're going to really learn about things for students who are deaf, or students who are blind, or students who are hard of hearing, or students who are low vision. And what this creates is the opportunity for them to dive deep and to really become subject matter experts. So the goal is that they'll become a subject matter expert and work with those individuals. So I can just kind of click through these quickly. And so these are the consultants that I have in mind for each one of the teams. Melissa Fisher is a new hire. And Lisa Pecker will also be a new hire. So then, you know, how is this different from our current model? This new model really creates a specialty team. And like I said, again, they'll get to specialize and really become subject matter experts. But it also creates this opportunity for teaming together and working together, and two brains are always better than one, you know, and so they'll have that opportunity to work together. We all talked a little bit this year about how outreach can be a little bit lonely. You know, we all work out of our home offices in our own little towns, and, you know, you don't have that camaraderie. So creating these teams will create some of that camaraderie and teamwork and some of that loneliness in outreach too. So it's a little bit different, this end model, this phase 2 model, because currently we're dividing the state a little bit more like this. And like I said, each consultant has their area that they're working in. They're responsible for the whole gamut of, you know, whether a child is deaf or hard of hearing, or in early childhood, or blind, low vision, or in early childhood. So they really need to know a lot of information. So that's our current map for our blind, low vision, and this is our current map for the deaf, hard of hearing team. And so what I anticipate doing with that map in two when we get to the teams is dividing it in thirds and having teams designated to the northwest, the southwest, and the east side of the state. And then they'll carry, you know, the caseload of the students specific to those areas. Hopefully we have enough consultants that we can spread out across the state, but that doesn't always work that way. Some of the challenges that we've identified with this current model, which I've spoke to some, is that working alone to serve students in a geographical area, and needing to know and understand the entire continuum. And then just a really strong desire of my consultants to really work with other people and dive deep together and team on these things. And so really, why do we want to do this? We really want to foster that collaboration. We really want to have a more regional caseload and that broader approach to specializing and really knowing the subject matter. And then if you go down to the next screen, there's an opportunity to create some things that we haven't been able to do in the past. And again, really focus on that piece of, you know, whether you live in Sydney, Montana, or you live in Great Falls, Montana, you're getting a newsletter from a team that's saying the same thing and providing the same support. So each of these teams will be tasked with weekly newsletters and quarterly newsletters, and sharing out information that's universal. And that's just a few highlights. There will be more than that. And then each team will be responsible, and, you know, we've always just kind of, you know, who drew the shortest straw gets assigned to a different committee is kind of how it's worked in the past. And this way, when we have these specialty teams, then they can really dive into these specific efforts that we have in outreach and run these programs, like our family advising program, our deaf mentor program, and then really supporting the events that we host on campus can be designated by teams. So this is kind of what our team responsibilities will be for our deaf, hard of hearing, and then our blind, low vision teams will also be responsible for specific tasks. really, in the end, the only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance. So right now we're dancing, and there's been a few different iterations of this plan. And through conversations with my consultants, I was really ready to jump right into phase 2 at the start of next year. And then I talked more with them, and we have several new consultants this year, and they said, just getting to know what I'm doing. Can we slow it down a little? And so I respected that need to slow it down a little, but I'm excited. They're all excited. We met on Tuesday as an outreach team, and they're excited for change. They're excited to have the opportunity to dive deep and really become subject matter experts. So, any questions?
I have a question for you. Have you done any kind of cost analysis on?
That's a question that Mr. Firthmeyer has also posed to me, and I have not dove into that just yet, but I plan to. I do think that the cost analysis will show a savings, because I'm really looking toward more, we're still going to have a caseload that is kid by kid by kid, but our response to each of those kids will be more universal. Kids that are similar will be getting the same things, and it's going to be more cost effective in the long run, because it'll be a broader approach rather than going in and seeing a single student, and more virtual, but not at the same time. And opportunities for regional events will also come out of this.
And that was my next question. Will you bring the kids within the region who are within these different groups together so they have some camaraderie?
Long-term vision, yeah. And, right now, that is something that we've talked about doing in the next year. Kind of waiting on knowing if we have some grant funding to support that, or what we might do to fund that. But we did do that a little bit this year, and we had consultants that hosted different, we had a pizza party around Christmas time, and then another outreach team did like a Valentine cookie decorating party, and they did a climbing wall party in Kalispell, Billings, and Missoula. And so we kind of got those groups together, and so they've all been encouraged. We want to grow that program and get these kids out there knowing that they aren't the only one. That will be part of it, yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions for Miranda?
If I can just add a few things onto her presentation, she gets I get to say we developed something, and she's the one that gets to build it, but there's a huge need out there, because if one consultant leaves, there is a risk of a student not being served for a couple of years, because there are 1,200 students that we are trying to track and provide service to. And so with a model like this, there's a team. So if one leaves the team, we still make sure we're providing services to that kid as we replace the team member. I'm with her fiscally. I think it's gonna cost less than what we currently do. But for the benefit of the students, I think it's gonna be a much better outcome for the students in the long run after we get through the growing pains. And then we also, I presented at the State Lions Convention, was that last week, Todd, or 2 weeks? And specifically challenged the Lions groups in each community to host events with us to help with that fiscal stuff. And there was a lot of thumbs up during that meeting. So we just keep building these relationships around the state, and hopefully we'll keep kind of doing that. So I can tell you that we will also be working throughout the biennium with the legislative education budget committee. There is questions out there about what does our outreach services do, and if you look at the state statute, it's consultative and consultative only. Activities that we do, some people think we need to be advocates, some people think we should be providing direct services to kids, and the state law says we are consultants to parents that are with younger children, and then to the schools once they become school age. So that's something we've identified and have asked that committee to look at over the next 2 years to see if there's something that maybe we do or maybe we don't change at the next legislative session. But it's becoming more and more apparent that we need to look at our model and make a stronger model, because less and less districts around the state have TBIs and TODs, even the bigger districts are. As in the state of Montana, you can have a special ed degree and be working with deaf and hard of hearing or vision. Well, special ed right now, as you know, you hear from reports from OPI all the time. That's a critical need area for them. So we see some districts are moving TODs and TBIs in special ed classrooms to meet the special ed rules. So there's less and less. And as you know, from the last biennium, working with the budget and trying to get, and the U of M did step up and put a proposal together. Ms. McLean, I actually gave kudos to your U of M, so. Is that on tape?
Yeah.
Can we erase that part? They did step up to try to create a TOD program. Until we get something closer, it's just gonna be hard for local districts to provide that. So we're hoping by changing our model that we can provide better services to districts too. No more questions. We'll let Ms. Briggs be off the hot seat. And I have to say, I apologize to you, Lydia, because you looked at me when you walked in. And her brother plays lacrosse with my son, and I didn't even realize it when you walked in. So welcome to the board. You have a great addition. Sure, you know all about her. Grandmother worked for the district for how many years here? Long time. So educational base. So if you don't mind, Board Member Schmidt, I'd like to go to some executive action stuff. So when the foundation's here, we can get into the discussion with that. So
Yes, please.
if you look in the board packet, we have 8 hires, 3 retirements, and 4 resignations. Hires is Cecilia Prefontaine. She's a teacher of the deaf. She was finishing her studies from RIT, which is Rochester Institute of Technology out of New York. She currently serves as an interpreter for us, but she wanted to go into teaching, so she is going to be a teacher for us next year. Then Morgan Sessions is actually going to take her position as an educational interpreter. Morgan's coming to us from ISU. And for 2 years in a row, we will have a fully staffed interpreter team.
Yay, Paul.
Yes. Lynette Hammond, you might have met her as you came in, is our public relations specialist, as well as one of the ladies that is sitting up front, and that's going to be key to help us move through the next 2 to 3 years as we push out new critical initiatives and things like that, that we're actually letting the public know what we're doing. So the governor's office did allow us to take one of our positions and transfer it into a public relations position. And the governor's office is pretty excited about that to happen and see what we can do with it. Keely She-Mix is a paraprofessional. We now are fully staffed paraprofessional, which is 6, but if you remember at this time last year, we had 10. And because of working with the interim budget committee, we realized that we were overstaffed by 4. So as an agency, we committed to coming back into what our budget said. And during our House Bill 2 presentation, we asked for extra paras and we did not receive that, but the governor's office has said that there's a way we can do that, and I'm forgetting the name, I forget all the time. Modified position, and if we fill modified positions, and in 2 years from now, can show that we filled those positions, that they'd be very open to adding permanent positions, so. And then we have Alyssa Tabarasi, that is a sub-para, and then you saw on her presentation, we have some new outreach consultants, Melissa Fisher, Lisa Pepper, and Amy Tangen. Amy's been here for years and just bounced back and forth, retired once, came back. One of these ladies is from Huntley area. Is that Lisa?
That's Melissa.
Melissa Fisher, and where's Miss Pepper from? Billings. So that has been an area that we've needed to cover in the deaf and hard of hearing, so it's nice to have 2 down there. But we do have some resignations. Andrew Metzenroth, residential advisor. One thing about our residential advisors is they do not get paid during the summer. So you find some people like him that was able to get a job, unfortunately. I loved his job here, but just needed full-time employment. Cecilia Prefontaine is the one that's going to be a teacher. Mackenzie Merja is going to work at the College of Great Falls, and although she's a teacher of deaf here, we're excited because she's going up there as their disabilities coordinator for students. So as we continue to build a relationship with the college, we now have someone sitting in that office to work with as far as coordinating things that can be for our student. And then Amy just went from DHH to
Yeah.
PI. You'll see that there's some retirements, and one thing that spurred this discussion that you heard from Miranda is not only did 2 bienniums ago now, the legislature give us 4 extra outreach consultants, which started a hiring spree. But I bet you've had 4 or 5 retire from there too, so they're just that department was at that age, and so you'll see 2 of those retirements, Leanne Goss and Barb Peterson. Leanne's been here, I know 20 years, and Barb, I think, is 34. 33. So we will definitely miss him. And then Tammy Kelly has been here 30-some years as a nurse. That is also the wife of Jim Kelly, our cottage director. So I would ask that you approve that personnel action plan. You can see at the bottom, we do have an offer on the table for another deaf and hard of hearing consultant out of the Missoula area. And we would still have 1 open, and we have 2 teachers positions open. One of the 2 teachers that we have, we've actually advertised as a workplace and job coach. And we do have a candidate that worked for RIT, again, the Rochester Institute of Technology. That's where she's working now. She was at the Texas School for the Deaf as a job coach for 10 years. And we'll actually be interviewing her this afternoon. So one of those teaching positions might go to that. Unfortunately, you will see our numbers are down in our cottage program, and I truly attribute that to we have not had transportation abilities to get kids here for the last 2 years. That is currently in House Bill 151, which Sunday I received an update on that. Because it went to conference committee, it had got lost into wherever bills go out there. And so now it's back on the governor's table, and hopefully we'll be taking action soon. But it's been a while, and I want the money for the interpreters that's in that bill, but that gives us our transportation. So if they give us anything, I hope they give us transportation. But because of that, we only need 2 wings in the cottage next year. So we are going to start the year with 2 wings instead of 3. So you'll see there's 3 residential advisors and a cottage counselor that we will actually be holding, with the anticipation that as we start recruiting, or we are able to transport, that we will have to open up a wing again, but we know we have the positions until that time. So that is the personal action report. The next items that we'll ask you to approve our out-of-state travel request. The first one is Lynette Hammond, the PR relations, and myself going to National School Public Relations Association National Seminar. Lynette has great experience in PR, but not school PR, so we're gonna go out to this and get both of us trained in that. That is something the state is funding. You can also see, I've asked my team to start, as they put in these requests, to identify which strategic plan objective it might go to. So you will see that this would go to the community involvement objective. The next one is Julie D. Alt and Christie, which is the other lady in the main office. You know, if you ever heard about the Breakthrough Coach, it basically is a program that helps the secretary and the school principal learn to work with each other and making it more efficient. So we're excited that those 2 are going to be taking that, and that would be our strategic planning, 1 overall, our organizational effectiveness. And then the last one is the Leader in Me Symposium, which is actually being funded by the foundation in this case. Leader in Me program is from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but it's a school-based program. So I will be attending that in this summer to see if it's something we should bring to MSDB. So those would be the 3 out-of-state travel requests we'll ask you to vote on here soon. Every year we're behind on some paperwork, so you'll see some here that usually you don't see till July, but One is the Golden Triangle Curriculum Agreement. We already know what it's gonna cost, so we're gonna ask you to approve that today so we can get Dr. Tharp's signature on it while he's on campus. The other one that we usually do later, actually in September, is the MHSA application, and also the insurance and liabilities. Ask you to vote and approve those. We worked with the MHSA over the last year where schools typically have to pay for all the sports up front. Where we will give them our application of all the sports that we co-op with Great Falls High. But then we don't send money in unless we actually have a kid in that sport. So they've been really working with us, because at the beginning of the year, we were always sending them $3,000 and getting about $2,800 back. So it's just working better for them and us. But we'll ask you to approve the concussion insurance and things like that. And then the fifth one is we are in negotiations with our union. It was going great, but not having House Bill 2 signed, House Bill 151 signed, and a few others. We can no longer move forward with our negotiations until some of that gets done, but there's a requirement with House Bill 252, so there is a HB 252 commitment in there that we would have Dr. Tharp sign, myself sign, and then the local president sign, and we would get that into the state tomorrow, because tomorrow is the deadline. Today, so we'll get that in today. Is today the 15th?
Today, yes.
So we'll get that in today. Chairperson Schmidt, that is what I will ask you to do.
Hey, I'm prepared to make some motions. I move to approve the MSDB out-of-state travel requests as listed in the agenda packet.
A motion to approve the out-of-state travel request as presented. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, any board member question or discussion?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thanks. This is Board Member Quinlan. Paul, I had a chance to go to a NSPRA National School Public Relations Conference years ago, and it was great. And especially the networking opportunities that you can follow up with. But I was wondering, do they have any special programs for example, a school for the deaf and blind?
So Board Chair and Board Member Quinlan, no, and that is our goal, is to be the leading group as far as that. I was recently visiting with the Ohio School for the Deaf and Blind. Actually did an accreditation on their campus, and we have recruited them to go through this process with us too, so we can start helping tell the story for deaf and blind schools around the US. So
Good job.
Thank you, Paul, always on the cutting edge.
Any other questions? Is there any public comment? All those in favor of approving the out-of-state travel request, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Member Schmidt.
I have another motion about personnel. I move to approve the MSDB personnel items as listed in the agenda packet.
And a second to approve the personnel items. Any board member discussion, questions? Any public comment? All those in favor of approving the personnel report as presented signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Board member Schmidt.
I have another motion. I move to approve the MSDB Golden Triangle Co-op as discussed.
Motion to approve the G2CC co-op. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
A second. Board members, discussion and questions. Any public comment? All those in favor of approving the Golden Triangle Curriculum Consortium Agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Board member Schmidt.
The next motion I have is, I move to approve the MHSA agreement, including the insurance agreement as listed in the agenda packet.
Motion to approve the MHSA and concussion insurance agreement, say aye, or second.
I'll give it a second.
Second from board member Atchison. Any board member questions or discussion? well done negotiating with MHSA. That exchange of checks back and
Yeah.
forth, just makes perfect sense, only if you actually have athletes competing. So that's a great idea. Any public comment? All those in favor of approving the NHSA agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Board Member Schmidt.
Right, one more. I move to approve the MFPE local number 4027 STARS Act agreement as listed in the agenda packet.
There's a second.
Second.
Motion in a second to approve the agreement with MPE Local 4027, so we can move forward with the STARS Act, which I will then immediately sign and Paul will deliver to Tyler, so they can. Oh, yes, it goes straight to the budget office. We'll run it down.
Right, because, yeah, so that is a little different since we are a state agency. We submit ours straight to the governor's budget office and not to OPI, but yeah, we'll go straight to Nancy Hall. So you've got-
Thank you. And kind of along these same lines, Paul always has such a unique challenge in trying to get everything on board that we are a school and we are a state agency and trying to make sure that everything matches up so that we're not left out of many of those benefits. And so we've got, Paul's done an excellent job in the last few years getting things aligned to make sure that things that are meant for schools are included with us, but then also making sure that we apply to everything else as state agencies. There's a second to approve that agreement. Did we already get a second? All right, any of the board member discussion? Any other public comment? All right, all in favor of approving the MFPE STARS Act agreement, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carried.
So then the last part, Board Member Schmidt and Chair Tharp, that I would like to have a discussion on today is there are two groups that are very influential in the MSDB, and you are one of those groups. And the other group that does a good job supporting our students and our teachers is our foundation. In your packet, and I'm sorry, I don't know the number that is in your packet, but you'll see an agreement between 76. So if you look at 76, you'll see the start of an agreement that was done back in 2014. So I have asked the foundation, and they have their finance committee here today to have a discussion with you, and you can have a discussion with them about the agreement that the two parties have together. So I think Miranda and I will sit to the side and we'll invite the finance committee of the foundation to come up and have a conversation with you.
Paul, would you introduce everybody who comes up before you sit aside?
Sure.
Thank you.
You want their real names or the names? No, so the first gentleman here, this is Todd Carmichael. He is now the president of the foundation. He has been on the board, what, 3 years, maybe 3 years now. Recently kind of semi-retired, so we're using him more and more. Next to him is Laura Walker, who's been on the board for more years, and I've been at MSDB, so how many years?
I think 8 now.
8 now, so probably right when I started. And so it's a great board because there's a diverse board. So here you have a Lion and you have someone in the legal field, and then you have Kevin Eckhart that works with First Interstate Bank and does the financial, and then also Tammy Lacey is on our board as well. So appreciate all of them, and we'll let you do the discussion.
All right, thank you.
First of all, I want to thank the Education Board for being here and allowing us to kind of go over some things that we feel that we need to really improve in our relationship. So again, thank you for being here. The biggest thing is you should have in your packet a memorandum of agreement that's been between the Board of Education and the foundation. And that agreement is about 11 years old. And I will tell you, the last couple of years here at MSDB, along with the foundation and our past president, Mark Wilmarth, we've just done a ton of things on campus. With the foundation's work and with the outreach of giving that we've received, we've purchased new stage equipment, sound equipment. Later on, you'll hopefully get a chance to see the the new bowling alley that was in disrepair for who knows how many years, 15, 16 years. And it's what we've got there now. It's just a great room that these kids can take advantage of and have fun and grow and be, you know, what they need to be. So with that being said, the biggest thing that we've noticed is we've been derelict a little bit in the fact that we really haven't had a good audit done of our finances. And with the help of these two people, we have really got our finances in great shape. We've got a complete audit. Yeah, thanks to Kevin here. We've had a very clean audit now completed, but what we have noticed is those audits are expensive. And they run about, what was it, about
25,000.
Yep. So, our memorandum requires that an audit be done, is it every 2 years? Every 2 years. We are hoping that with your, help, that we can maybe change that language to where we can have maybe a review done every 2 years. And a review will save us about $15,000 every time that's conducted, about 10,000 per review.
It'll, because of what our plan is going forward, obviously, since this was drafted, the prices of audits have frankly more than doubled. For a lot of different reasons, mainly that there's just not enough auditors to meet the need. And we're not a big fish. We're not a giant organization. We don't have a ton of transactions. So we really feel like we can comply with the spirit of what needs to be done with the review, which is not a full-blown audit, but they're still looking at our financials. They're still checking for areas that can be improved, looking for possible kinks in the system to avoid any type of embezzlement or conflicts of interest. But the review cuts the price down about 10,000 a year. And we'd like to do it every year, but contractually, with OPI every other year, just because we're not that big of a fish and we just feel like that's a huge expense for someone that's not that big. Anything that?
That's, I think the key part of the review is similar to an audit where you have an independent auditor that's not associated with the board do it. You know, for example, Douglas Wilson is our accounting firm that does our 990s. We do opinion, which would be a independent firm that isn't even associated with us. So it is an independent review of our books. But again, it's like, it takes a lot of pressure off our budget to scale back just a little bit.
And now that we have a relationship with an auditor and a reviewer, it's been going much more smoothly. To be frank, Kevin had to call in a favor to even get one. We sent out, requests for an audit and got 0 responses.
Did you use a school auditor or you were just looking for an auditor?
So it's an actual CPA firm that comes in.
Yes,
And that's-
specializing in school audits though.
The auditor specializes in nonprofits.
Okay, nonprofits. And you know what school audits are going for in 2011, what, 14, what, $3,000?
It's the same thing that's happening to you guys. Schools are facing huge percentages of their budget just to get an audit done.
Yeah, this is crazy.
Sure.
If you can even find someone to reply to you.
Our auditors, 2 years behind.
2 years.
So can you specifically clarify the differences between a reviewer and an auditor? I understand, I mean, really what we're looking for is embezzlement and right, how are we gonna make sure that nobody's taking this?
It's kind of the level of testing they go in because they've got to perform so many tests. And again, our budget say is QuickBooks online and they can go in and look at they have access to our full bookkeeping system now. So for example, if you were a bigger firm and you were doing an audit, they'd go in and spot check inventory, they'd spot check, make sure all your accounts balance correctly. But for us, the difference between the audit, they're gonna do the same work, because we just don't have inventory, we don't have. The excess stuff that they would normally be looking for, and they still do look for review, as a review, you're still doing the same comments of, always tell you, saying, well, who's stealing from the company? And like, well, these are the potential people that could if they wanted to. But, you're getting the same, for us, we're getting them almost the same thing as a reviewed versus an audit. It's a complete independent look at our financials.
Madam Chair, Madam Board Member Quinlan has a question. I also have a question.
Thank you, thank you. Board Member Quinlan, you have your hand raised?
Thank you. You may have said this, I apologize if I didn't catch it. What's your annual operating budget for the foundation? Not the endowment, but the operating budget?
We've done about $300,000, and sometimes it varies depending upon, if we're running for example, when we were running the stage, we raised a little more money on a special project.
General operating year to year is around 210 to 220. And then about another 100,000 in special projects typically.
Thank you. And I guess I just share with the board for perspective. I don't know whether this number has changed, but if it has, it's increased. School districts in Montana can do a financial review if they have a budget less than 500,000. They don't have to go through the full-blown audit. So that's just a comparison point.
Thank you. Thank you for that context.
And just to address your question, there are different standards that CPAs have to meet in a review versus audit, and that's their own operating rules on what level they're providing.
Dr. Slinger, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm assuming the foundation's 503 status is as an institutionally related foundation. So my question would actually is to Paul, with the uniqueness of MSD, being a state agency, does the state agency have different requirements for audits? Because and does the foundation's audit roll into your audit? Because at my college, we couldn't do this because we have state funds and the audit from our foundation has to be a full audit and has to roll into as part of our audit as a college because they're institutionally related foundation.
So, Chair Tharp and Board Member Slinger, I was hoping someone would ask a question about the state agency, so I'll pay you later. Yeah. But when I first took this job over, the state was auditing our finances as a state agency every 2 years. The last biennium, the state changed even their own auditing procedures that we don't receive an audit now unless the legislature or someone wants it. So we haven't been audited in 3 years and now will not be audited at least in 2 more years because it was not requested in this last biennium. So even that has changed. If you look at page 3 of the actual agreement, you'll see that's what the foundation is looking for. And it's under section 4B2 is where it says that they would have an audit once every 2 years and provide the board a copy of that. And the way they provide that to you is through me. I'll bring it to the board of Public Ed and attach it to the agenda. But then right underneath that, you'll see that the legislator auditor needs to have access to those records. And that's actually, I don't think Board Member Slinger was on the board yet, but we used to have folks from MSDB do all the audit transition. And in our last audit, that was one of the findings that through this agreement, they need to be separated. So now we have very little, Vinny, I think it's just payroll. Donna Schmidt submits payroll, I think is about all that's left, that MSD.
To the third party.
To a third party. But even everything else has been separated, so, but they did look for it last time, and that's how I think Tammy might have been the board chair at about that time when we went through that, so. I'm glad you asked that question. The state's even changed theirs, and I can tell you, looking at the document that Kevin presented to us in April, compared to the last audit. Other than not being as many pages, it was the same information that the reviewer gave us. I can tell you that, so.
Mr. Chair, Member Schmidt, I just would like to, say that obviously this needs to be changed. It's the same age as my daughter who's a middle schooler, so this is a middle school aged contract. I have a question. I've been looking online. Is there any state requirement for audits for foundation? I know other states have a certain amount of time, 3 years, 5 years, they have to be audited. Does Montana have a state requirement? No. Okay.
Can I answer that? Sorry. So the answer is no, but this board, and I think they need to be commended, so there's a few things that they do is they make sure that every one of their board members donates to the foundation themselves. And because of this, what's that label you guys have received? There's a
Gold Star or something?
Gold Star, yeah.
which goes on a national website, and that's actually brought the foundation money because of the audit now, and then every one of their board members providing to their actual foundation fiscally through a donation. They're on a national website now. When people look to fund 5013Cs, they are on that list because of doing the audit that they have done and taking a commitment to not just talking the talk, but walking the talk at the same time. So they wouldn't bring that up, but I'm gonna bring it up because they've done a great job as far as that. And putting themselves out there as good stewards of money and telling people where the money's going and things like that. And you'll get to play on the bowling alley against kids this afternoon because they are challenging the kids like they did, and then Todd ended up with a pie in his face. So just be careful.
Don't bet them.
Don't underestimate them.
Right. To kind of expand on your question is that for nonprofits that receive government money, if you receive in excess of $1 million in government money, you have to require an audit. Anything less is not required an audit. And we don't receive any government money on ours.
So I love the idea, fully support it as long as, and you've done your homework, those were only hanging right out of it. But I would suggest also to the fact that this is a 14-year-old MOU. Perhaps I would encourage us to look at a new MOU that is updated with the latest, newest. I'm sure there's a few things that are missing.
Well, and that was to follow up. That was my next question. Are there other things that you would prefer to see updated in terms of this MOU?
The biggest thing, we've checked most of the codes, the state codes in there, and I think we're good, except for maybe.
On section 4B3, there's just, I think, a typo. There is no subsection 2 to 18.118. That should just be clarified and updated, which is probably a change in the code that we never reflected.
The biggest thing would be,
Yeah,
just
changing the review.
changing the audit to reviews. So we can get that, all this language put together.
And then just personal preference, I'm not gonna die on this hill. But I would like to change the disputes and venue to Cascade County, because that's where the school is. But
Instead of Lewis and Clark.
County. So again, not gonna die on that hill, but that would be my preference.
Can I make a recommendation for how we move forward?
Yes, please.
So I think probably the best way would be for our MSDB committee to work with the foundation and Superintendent Frithmeyer between now and our next meeting, which is in July. I think we did come up with a draft MOU that this board could approve. I'm assuming there's probably some action that you would also want your foundation to take. How you do that is up to you, but so I think that we could find a time to meet jointly and get that done. Does that work for all of you?
I think that's a great suggestion.
In the meantime, don't do it now.
Yeah, you could probably wait.
And thank you very much for going through this and proposing the updates. We appreciate all you do for MSDB.
Good.
Perhaps a clause in here too that says that both parties will review this every 5 years or something like that. We're not committed to an 11-year-old document that clearly nobody had an electronic version of it, had to be scanned in.
At least for 10 years.
I'm just glad we found it.
So, all right, any other questions for the foundation?
Board members. Board member Rasmussen, I just want you to know that Todd has those items that you asked for.
Yeah, they've been passed out. Thank you.
So usually when Madeline's on campus, she hands out to the board envelopes, and since she's not here, they brought them in, so.
We have a Madeline.
Thank you. The old saying is you have not because you ask not, so we are asking.
Thank you. Board Member Rasmussen?
Just one more, I just on this, business at the end with, this agreement with driving First District Court in for the County of Lewis and Clark. Because we're the board and because they're a state agency, that might be something,
We can discuss.
yeah.
All right.
I just had a comment to make, board member Schmidt, please. My name is Tammy Lacy. I serve on the MSDB board and I'm chair of the Public Relations Committee for the board. And one of the things that the board does is print and distribute the Express newsletter that you just received a copy of. We pay for that, the foundation does. And I just want to publicly thank board member Quinlan for offering her services to help us be an outside editor for the Express newsletter. So Madeline, we really appreciate that and thank you for that. The other piece of information that you received is the annual report, which was put together by Paul and his team. Want to thank him for that excellent work. The foundation did pay for the printing of the report so that we can disseminate all of the amazing things that are happening here. So we are working on public relations and we're really glad that you're traveling to that conference. And I think that will also help our committee as we move forward. Thank you.
And speaking of public relations, we just maintain open discussion and continue dialogue, and we won't have any litigation to even talk.
Very good. Thank you. Is there anything else? Paul, do you have anything?
Just a suggestion, also swing by the weight room after you're done bowling. That was another special project. We replaced the equipment and it's really cool.
Awesome. Thank you. Dr. Slinger, you had something?
Yeah, I'm just gratitude. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing for the students and for school. I mean, just thank you.
How do we do that?
Yes. Yeah.
Learn.
All right.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you. Right, one way or the other, no matter how far we get behind, we always finish on time. So we are now at lunch. So before we get direction from Paul for lunch, McCall, would you tell us what's happening this afternoon?
Yes, so, I'm going to assume since we're walking across the parking lot for lunch, you could come back here if you want before the tours, but it's probably might want to bring your stuff with you. Just jump in your car to go to the tours. That's what I'm gonna do, just setting that expectation. But we do need to be at the core school at 1 o'clock. It's not far, we'll carpool. We have a couple of spots in our car, if folks wanna come with us, Renee, yes. So for others who might wanna join, and then we'll be core school at 1 o'clock. We'll be at the Paris Gibson at 2:30, and then we'll be back here time certain at 3:30. So we should be back here around 3:15, 3:20, but we are starting at 3:30 regardless. It is an action item.
Yeah, we'll come down at 3:30.
Thank you.
And Mr. Fruitmeyer, lunch.
Yep, so as we started last year, which was a big hit, is because if you remember, when I was hired as a superintendent, one thing the staff said is they never interacted with the board much. So this was a chance that we took, and we did it last year. We actually did it in this room. But this year we thought it would be better. So you're welcome to join our staff, and the foundation has been invited to go eat in our Mustang Center. So please, even those sitting in the crowd, please go join. It does take you away from the kids, but it does create that great connection to the staff members. And go enjoy a sandwich. It's the same thing as last year, so.
Okay, with that, we will stand in recess. We will reconvene at the Forest School at 1:00. At our meeting at 2:30. 2:30, and then got here time served at 3:30, so we're standing recess.
Forest School.
Yeah.
Of that.